Boom, and we're live. Hello, Kyle.
Hello, Joe Rogan.
How you doing? You look very good there in a suit.
Thank you. You know, I like to pretend that I'm a serious human being by wearing this, but I'm just a dick.
Well, you're a youngish fellow, so maybe a suit would give you more of an air of composure or authority, perhaps.
That's the idea. If you look like you're really serious, then people assume you're serious, and they don't know that I'm, making dick jokes and all shit like that.
It's a good move. It's a very smart move.
Yeah,
I've actually had some suits made. I had to do this function for one of my kids' schools, and I had to go to this function. We had to wear nice clothes. It's like a dress-up thing, and I don't really have nice clothes, nothing that like fits, and so I had to have something made. So now I've been wearing it when I go on special dates with Mrs. Rogan.
So it's like it's a suit like this. It's a
nice suit jacket, and tailored, the whole deal. Fits me.
And how do you feel when you put it on? Do you feel like I'm official now?
I'm a serious person. I feel like a serious person. Like if I dress like this, like a hoodie and a t-shirt, I feel like a schlub. I feel like a dork. I am.
There's this thing that I do where, especially when I'm doing my show, oftentimes you do that half-assed move where I look like this,
but then
I might have basketball shorts on, or I might have sweatpants.
Do you do that?
Sometimes, yeah, sure. It all depends on what mood I'm in. I mean, sometimes I'll do the whole thing and look nice, but usually I'm just being lazy and
Guy
Ritchie
was on the podcast, and he made a very good statement in defense of the suit. It was a really interesting sort of testimony in defense of the suit and the pocket square. He's a big believer of the pocket square, which I think is preposterous.
Yeah, it's a little too far.
I think it's too far. I'm with you.
But it doesn't go out of style. That's the thing, is like if you look at a picture of somebody from like 1906 and you look at a picture of somebody from 2018 and they're wearing a suit, you go, oh, okay. But then other aspects of style and fashion change so fast. I mean, you look at, remember I think they were called Jenkos, like the really baggy jeans that people wore?
Oh, yeah, like Cavariccis.
I don't know what that is. Is that like Jenkos?
Was something that we used to wear. I'm dating myself. This is like in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. It was like they were tight to like your pelvic region, and then they would flare up when they got past the hips.
Like MC Hammer pants?
Yes.
So terrible.
Yeah, but those didn't really make it, right? And then but they did make it in the gym. Like if you go to the gym, there's still guys who wear these kind of sweatpants.
That's right.
That are like these kind of puffy sweatpants.
And they're usually juiced out of their minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
they're so big.
These are the workout clothes everybody wears.
They probably wear those pants because there it is. There's Cavariccis.
Oh my God!
Like. I used to wear those. Try to get laid.
You
wear whatever
those?
you could. Yes, I had
That's
to.
the opposite of trying to get laid.
Not in those days. Back in those days, like people didn't know any better.
Right, but that
like
goes to my point.
Wigs.
Is that things change? Except powdered wigs, exactly. Like people
do you
like
know
to
where
bring
that
up.
came from?
No,
we
where?
found out on the podcast. It came from syphilis. Yes, the whole wig thing came out of royalty. These royals had syphilis. What was the whole story? It was about the term big wig, and it was who were the people? Was it Dutch kings? Who are the kings? See if you can find that story, because it's a fascinating story. What it was there was these, I think they were brothers, and they had syphilis. They were just banging everybody. Yeah, why do people wear powdered wigs? And it all came from a hair loss that these guys would have. There it goes. The peruke story begins, like many others, with syphilis. By 1580, the STD had become the worst epidemic to strike Europe since the Black Death, according to William Clowes. Clowes, C-L-O-W-E-S. How would you say that?
Either one. Close, I'd say.
An infinite multitude of syphilis patients clogged London's hospitals, and more filtered in each day. Without antibiotics, victims faced the full brunt of the disease. Open sores, nasty rashes, blindness, dementia, and patchy hair loss. Baldness swept the land.
So that's them saying, I'm healthy.
Well, it just became a thing because these... Scroll down so it'll tell you like who the people were that did it. Yeah. So you went a little too far. Yeah. And so syphilis outbreak sparked a surge in wig making. Victims hid their baldness. Blah 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 blah. Louis XIV was only 17 when his mop started thinning. Worried that his baldness would hurt his reputation, Louis hired 48 wig makers to save his image. 5 years later, the King of England, Louis's cousin, Charles II, did the same thing when his hair started to gray. Both men likely had syphilis. Courtiers, how do you say that?
Courtiers.
Courtiers?
Yeah, I think
and
so.
Other aristocrats immediately copied the two kings. They sported wigs, and the style trickled down to the upper middle class. Europe's newest fad was born. And so that's where it came from. So the whole powdered wigs with people of distinction in court,
Right,
all
yeah.
that shit came from syphilis, which, like most things.
Well, whenever somebody tries to, kind of like deify the founding fathers, I always think, well, yeah, they were brilliant on some things, but on the other hand, they wore powdered wigs and shat in outhouses and had slaves.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a little bit of a balance that we have to take into consideration there.
Well, I mean, think about how much cultural change has taken place in our society just over the last few years.
Sure.
You mean,
Sure.
words that were commonplace are now completely unacceptable. The styles of behavior and methods of expression are being criticized and critiqued in this really radical way. And I think it's good. Ultimately, I think there's a lot of back
To
and
an
forth.
extent, I'd say it's good, but
The sentiment is good. I think the reaction and some of the overreaction, like, there's a spectrum, right? There's always going to be, like, did you see there was something that came out yesterday from Portland State University where Peter Boghossian and James Damore, the Google Memo guy, and Heather Heying, she was a professor at Evergreen State.
I remember with the Jordan Peterson
Yes,
thing. Sure.
and she was actually on my podcast last week with her husband, Brett Weinstein. Can't say Weinstein.
Oh, so I'm not thinking of the
Weinstein.
same person. I was thinking of the person who got fired because of...
She did not get fired.
Oh, she didn't get fired, but
She
they criticized
left.
her for playing a Jordan Peterson thing. Is that the same person?
No.
Okay, sorry.
That's Lindsay.
Okay, right, Lindsay something.
or another.
Yeah, sure.
She was in a different university.
Okay.
Laurier. Was that it?
Canada.
In Canada. Another university in Canada. This is in Portland. Anyway, so they're in the middle of this conversation, and Heather, who is she's a biologist, and she starts going over the biology of the differences between males and females that are just undeniable. And these kids get up and they start yelling that this is bullshit and fuck you and power to the people, all this crazy shit. And then they tip over the sound system, and they're the most hilarious, classical, liberal, progressive lefties. Green hair. The guy has like this puffy afro, and he's like, we don't tolerate Nazis, man. Like, these are fucking Nazis. These are biologists, you piece of shit.
That stuff is the kind of stuff that I think turns people off to the left.
Yes.
And almost provides a gateway to the right where all of a sudden people can buy into an even broader right-wing ideology. Because if you look at the left and that's your perception of the left, is it's the people with the pink hair or the blue hair and they're just going around and their whole point is to deplatform people or censor people or scream about Ben Shapiro or whatever the case is. Like, my whole thing is if you're on the left, and I think most lefties do this to be fair, put the identity politics aside, okay, and let's talk about the things that we actually already have a majority of the American people with us on. So, like a classic left-wing idea. Let's have a living wage. The minimum wage is not a living wage right now. You could work full-time and not make enough money to survive. Well, if you're on the left and you go out there and you talk about we need to fight to try to get a living wage and make our government work for us, well, then you get everybody to agree with you.
Right.
Even most Republicans agree with you. And you can go down the list, whether it's legalizing marijuana, 60% of the American people are now with us. Ending the wars. There was a poll that came out in 2013, so it's old, admittedly, but only 17% of the American people still wanted to be in the war in Afghanistan. And we're still there today. I'd imagine, if anything, that number probably dropped even further, and everybody's like, what are we doing in Afghanistan?
Right. But isn't the problem with polls is when you ask people about it, you're not asking them if they're informed. You're just asking them.
You're just asking their opinion on it, sure.
Right. Well, what I was saying is about the left versus the right. Is that the real problem is anybody can be on either. So you're going to get these people that are going to disrupt this Heather Heying, lecture on biology from an informed scientific perspective and like, fuck this, man, it's a patriarchy. You're going to get that.
Yeah.
But you're also going to get people like yourself. You're also going to get people that are aware of the issues and educated and are debating this in a very public way and trying to figure out what's the best possible solution to these things. The problem is anytime you have a group, whether it's pick the group, gun owners, vegans, whatever, anybody can fucking join, man.
Sure.
And as soon as anybody can join, you can't look at like the worst case scenarios, the green haired dork that kicks over the microphone because they don't like the idea that Heather is speaking logically about biology. Like, you have to look at like the the whole thing.
Sure.
And we don't like to do that. We like to point at the green-haired dork and say, hey, liberals, there's your left.
Sure, exactly. And, the breakdown to me is when you look at somebody like that, they're in the category of what I would call authoritarian left, because they want to control other people's actions. They want to shut down that speech and say, your ideas are so dangerous, I don't even want to hear it. There's a whole nother contingent of the left, which, again, I would argue is probably the majority of the left, which is the libertarian left, which is people like me and many others who say, listen, live and let live on social issues. Even though I don't agree with Steven Crowder or Ben Shapiro on anything, I'm never going to, try to protest to get them to not speak their mind at a school.
It's foolish.
It makes it look like you don't have an argument when you say, I can't let that guy talk. And then they get to go around and say, I'm so persecuted because I'm right.
Right.
Meanwhile, I say, okay, you want to have somebody like that go speak at college? Sure, fine, let him speak. Let me get the speech after.
Well,
that's good enough.
I think open conversations are critical. And I also, this is going to probably be unpopular. I don't think the way to do it is in front of a large group of people. I think you open yourself up to a lot of grandstanding, a lot of saying things just for applause breaks. There's a lot of bullshit. It changes the nature of the conversation because it becomes theater. You're doing this thing in front of all these people, and you can hear a lot of these times people say things like, I'm a comic, so I know when someone's saying things for a reaction.
Right.
You're like, there's a way you do it where you say it like this, and that's what we want. And everybody goes, yeah!
Yeah.
You do not talk like that when it's just you and a person. When it's just you and a person, you are just alone with your ideas. And I think that is the way a guy like Ben Shapiro and whoever you want on the left should have a discussion.
Yeah. There's something about that's sophistry, so you're not creating the best argument, you're just trying to sound like you have the best argument. And, Bill Maher, for example, does this where he's very good at the punchy one-liners.
Sure.
Like he's in a conversation with his panel on his show, and he'll be like, "Ba-ba-ba-ba," and there was, "Ah!"
Right. That's his
and
style.
Like,
he's
you didn't really say anything. You
right.
just it was like a quick partisan hacky point you made, but since people already agree with you in the audience, they clap.
Right.
So it's harder to flesh out the ideas and really. That's why, listen, I've always said, I'm not the biggest fan of debate. So I've done a few debates, and people online like when I do debates, but I'm not the biggest fan of debates because I think it's like the WWE of intellectual pursuits, where you go in, this person's whole point is to defend this side of it, my job is to defend the other side of it, and it's like, okay, clash. But it's like, okay, well then, when we come across an issue like the fucking 64 genders on Facebook or whatever it is, and I actually might agree, am I now put in a position where I'm supposed to be like, no, I'm going to disagree because that's the format of the thing that we're doing?
Right,
it's just weird, and it's not normal.
Yeah, and I think that's actually very important for both sides to do. Like, when there's something on your side that you disagree with, you should be honest about it. And even saying that there's a side, that there's sides, that there's our side versus their side. I think we're so inherently tribal that we should resist any temptation whatsoever to form teams. Especially about critical issues, like really important social issues, really important economic issues, really important civil rights issues. These are just things we should just talk about without looking at them in terms of, oh, the left wants this, so I oppose it, or the right wants this, so I have to figure out ways to mock it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know what to say in response to that. I agree with that.
It's just, we were talking about this before the podcast, that like, what I try to do is have conversations with everyone. I try to have conversations with nutty people like Alex Jones. I try to have conversations with rational people like Sam Harris. I try to have conversations with all kinds of people, but without fail, every time I have a left-wing person on, I'm some cuck left-wing.
Yeah, that's going to happen, sure.
And every time I have a right-wing person on, I'm some alt-right Nazi apologist. It's like this weird inclination we have to try to label and categorize people. And I try to resist those labels as much as humanly possible.
Well, I feel like what you're really good at is you can have on people who disagree completely on stuff, but you'll kind of find a nugget of agreement in the conversation with that person, and then you can expand on that, and you can end up having a very nice conversation. And you never really bring anybody on to try to like browbeat them and tell them that they're wrong on this issue or that issue. You know what I mean?
I have no desire to do that. I don't have. I mean, look, I've had a lot of arguments in my life, and I don't like them. I don't think they're beneficial. I mean, I think debate is good, but every time I've ever been in an argument with someone, like a real argument, I always come out of it feeling gross.
Yeah.
There are times in life where arguments are necessary. There's times in life where you're just faced with aggression or conflict, and you have to do something about it. You have to meet it head on. There are times in life like that. But whenever you can avoid that, do. And I think a lot of what arguments are, and I've failed at this in my life many times, but a lot of what arguments are is the way you've reacted to the thoughts and the expression that another person has. And if you just reacted a different way or approached it in a different manner or took it into consideration a little bit more before you responded, I think the conversation could have gone another way. And I think I'm learning how to do that more and more as I get better at podcasting, get better at conversations, learning how to just settle someone down and learning how to genuinely be a nice person. So where I don't want to like insult anybody. I don't want to be in a disagreement with someone. I want to discuss ideas.
Sure. Who was that skeptic guy from years back that he put you on a list of like top 10 conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. And
Brian Dunning.
And then I remember watching that clip, and it was so frustrating when you guys were going back and forth, because you would say, I think you were talking about the 9/11 thing, and you're like, I'm 100% not saying it was a conspiracy. I'm saying it looked like the building came down in a controlled demolition. Those are two very different things. It's one thing to say, I believe it's a conspiracy. It's another thing to say, the way it came down looked like it was a controlled demolition. But he kept insisting and trying to tell you what you believe. As you're sitting across from him and you're like, no, I don't believe that.
He was trying to tell me what I was saying,
right,
even though it was very clear. Okay, how do I say this? I don't think Brian is a bad guy. I don't think his brain works correctly. I'm being honest. I think there's a real problem there. And when he does these videos, he sounds like a strip club DJ. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I've never seen his original content.
There's a way that people talk. Well, they take on an effective. Yeah. There's a way.
I hate that.
But that thing is done by people that are trying to achieve a desired result. Like, it's not that they're themselves talking about a very specific thing. It's that they are trying to put on an air of intellectual authority. And, you know, he talks of himself as a science writer, whatever that is. Like, I don't hate that guy. I'm not mad at him. The whole thing was kind of foolish, and it was very damaging to him, and he wound up going to jail afterwards.
Really?
Yeah, not because of that, but because of something that he did. He was involved in some sort of a scam with, was it Amazon or Google? eBay, that's right. He was involved in some sort of a scam where he had embedded cookies. You would go to his site. It made it look like when you were buying things online that you had gone through his site first, when in fact you hadn't. There was just a cookie that was embedded, something along those lines. Whatever it was illegal, and he wound up going to jail. So, and even his defense of that, it's like, I think there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
I don't know what that something is. But there's a spark plug that's not screwed in all the way. There's something wrong.
Well, speaking of fake personas, I feel like that's the worst when it comes to politics.
Yes.
And I do feel like there's very, 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 very few upsides of Trump, in my opinion. But one of the upsides of Trump is that he did kind of break the mold in terms of what was viewed as the right way to communicate as a politician. Because before him, you had all these very measured people who had the proper posture, and they spoke with their thumb pointed down because they don't want to be too strong with their finger pointing at you like that.
Right,
so,
or a fist.
And then he comes along, and he's obviously shooting from the hip, and he clearly has no filter, and he's tripping over his words. Tremendous, believe me. He's unnecessarily punchy and short with his sentences. And I remember there was a report that came out that said he communicates, I think it was like a 6th or 7th grade level or something like that. And everybody in the media was mocking it. And I did a segment where I said, you guys are mocking, and that's a terrible idea, because guess what? The way he's speaking, even though it sounds stupid, it's going to pierce through. Like, you know how when some people talk, it's hard, you have to focus to pay attention, to listen to where they're going with it, and it's hard. And then there's other people who talk, and it's like, you just get it. It's immediately right in your brain. Right. And it doesn't matter, agree or disagree with the substance of what that person is saying, you know when somebody's an effective communicator. And when he was out there on the campaign trail, and he was, for example, campaigning in the Rust Belt, where Hillary Clinton did not go,
right.
And he was like, NAFTA's terrible. They shipped out all your jobs. It was unbelievably terrible. Believe me, let me just tell you. What I'm going to do, I'm going to keep your jobs here. It's going to be unbelievable. Believe me.
That's pretty good.
It is good, right? I do a pretty good Trump. People tell me that.
The voice is a little off, but the mannerisms are excellent.
So
how about the fucking thing he did recently where he said that he would have gone into the school when the school shooting was going on? He would have run in there even if he didn't have a gun.
Yeah, it's like
Could you
I was with
imagine
him
any other
shitting on the
president
cop.
saying that?
You can't. I was with him when he was like, "Listen, the cop should have gone in." Everybody's like, "Yeah, of course the cop should have gone in." Yeah, but then he has to gratuitously take it so much further. Then he goes, "I would have gone in," and then he adds, "without a weapon." Like now everybody knows you're just full of shit.
Imagine if he was there. Imagine if he was there. Like if Trump just happened to be there giving a speech at the school when a school shooting started, and he didn't do anything. He just stood on the outside.
We know he would have. It's a guarantee. I mean, he's the guy who said, my personal Vietnam was avoiding STDs at the orgies I went to.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, so he's a chicken hawk.
Wasn't that a scene in The Dead Zone? Yes.
I didn't see The Dead Zone.
In the book, in fact, the guy uses someone to shield him from a shooter. And that's what keeps that guy from ever becoming president, so it keeps him from pressing the button. Because the guy was going to become president, and he was going to launch a nuclear assault and a nuclear war. And this guy that was Christopher Walken's... Was Christopher Walken? Was, right? I think so. He realized by touching this guy's hand, this guy was going to do this. And so there was like some scenario that took place where someone was trying to shoot him, and he used someone else to shield him from the bullet, and that's what prevented him from ever becoming president.
It's a movie, The Dead Zone, or it's a show?
It's a movie, and it's also it was also a book by Stephen King. I'm trying to figure.
Okay.
I read the book and I saw the movie. I'm trying to remember. Was it Walken? Yeah. Fuck it. That's right. Young Walken. Look at that handsome faced bastard.
He's a weird looking dude.
Weird as it gets, but that's what's cool about him. It's a great movie though. Fun. It might not be great anymore. It might be one of those movies like I always told people we should watch Altered States. It's amazing. And then I watched it. And like,
certain things age so bad. We were just talking about it. I don't know, but especially with comedy, and you've pointed this out. If you go back and look at old comedy, it's just a different world they were living in.
Stand up.
And exactly, if you take the conversation we're having and you like somehow get it back to 1950, people would look at us like. Just the fact that we casually curse and, the concepts we're talking about, they'd be like, this is unbelievably impolite.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, one of the best examples, I think, is Stephen Colbert saying that President Trump uses his mouth as Putin's cock holster.
Just said it on, whatever network TV or cable, whatever the fuck it is.
Can you imagine Johnny Carson doing that? I mean,
no way.
Go back to the old Ed Sullivan show, where Jackie Mason got banned for life because it looked like he gave the finger. He did this thing.
Right.
Like, hey, this is what I do. I'm Jackie Mason. And he says he never even gave him the finger, but he was accused of giving someone the finger, and that was it. He was banned.
Didn't they do that with Elvis when he performed? He moved his hips in a way that they thought was too sexual, so they're like, we can't show this because there are kids that exist in the world.
Well, they would only frame him from the waist up. They wouldn't show all that fuck motion. There was too much fuck motion going on with Elvis. Come on, man.
That's so goofy. I don't get what it is about.
Different times. I mean, they were just a few generations away from the powdered wigs. I mean, really?
That's such a different world. I can't wrap my mind around it. But you know what? It's true that, who was it? I think it was Lenny Bruce who had all these different lawsuits against him because, so in a way, he's like, he kind of paved the way for people like us, where you, especially because you're in comedy too, but even just for the internet where we have this, this free open platform where we talk about whatever. I feel like we wouldn't even be able to get away with talking, mentioning the sexual stuff or cursing if it wasn't for guys like that who paved the way. Because people were getting arrested for doing a stand-up set and cursing.
100%. I have a bunch of framed Lenny Bruce posters in my house. Yeah, I think he is one of the most important figures in the history of pop culture because he was way ahead of his time. Just way, way ahead of his time. He had jokes back then that I saw people stealing in the 1980s.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't even know if they were stealing it. I should rephrase that. I think they might have had parallel thinking. One of the jokes was about gay people, that in certain places being gay and sodomy is actually, I think sodomy is still technically illegal in some places.
In some states, I think, like Mississippi or some shit.
Which includes going down on somebody, by the way.
I know. So blowjobs are technically illegal in some states.
If you eat pussy, you're a sodomite. It's fucking hilarious, right? But what was my point? So his joke was that, he goes, dig this, man. If you're gay, he goes, they put you in jail with a bunch of men who want to have sex with you. I mean,
that's a joke that can last.
That's a fucking joke that would work today. If nobody figured that out today and it didn't exist and somebody just said that on stage today.
You know,
there's a lot of those though that people like they don't realize it's been said before because it just seems like
that happens, of course. Even in what I do, political commentary.
Oh, for sure.
I'll make points and it'll be a point that 8 people made before me. Meanwhile, 100%. I think I'm some fucking genius over here.
Yeah, it's unavoidable, especially with like obvious points. Like when I started out in Boston doing stand-up. We're obviously right next to New Hampshire, and New Hampshire's state motto on their license plate is "Live free or die." And I said, yeah, those plates are made by prisoners. How fucked up is that? And I'm sure, I am absolutely positive other people thought that up as well. Because that's always been the thing, right? Like, people would make fun of prisoners would make license plates. Like, it was like in movies. Like, yeah, you're going to go make license plates. Like, that's what happened. You know, they'd put the cuffs on them. You know, yeah, now you'll be making license plates. Like, for some reason, like, being in prison was associated with making license plates.
There's some, just because you brought up prisons, this is a pivot here, but there's some creepy stuff going on in terms of the labor that they're getting from prisoners.
Oh, fuck yeah. We were just talking about that with the fires. That they were paying those guys like $1 a day to risk their life in the Santa Barbara fires. Fuck, man.
How is that allowed?
Hey, maybe give me a month off, you know, or a year off or whatever. You know, maybe if you're not a dangerous criminal, like maybe you did something stupid, you know, some petty theft or something like that. And, you know, look, I'll go out there and fight the fire, but you gotta give me some sort of a break off my sentence. Nope, we're gonna give you $1 a day.
So they make them do it, and then they still have the normal sentence? They don't even reduce it or anything?
I don't know. I wish I did. I mean, I'm sure good behavior reduces sentences. I'm sure that probably does something. But the idea that they could pay you $1 a day to fight a fire is fucking crazy. Well, or $1 an hour or whatever the fuck the actual number was.
The way we do prisons in general in the U.S. is really weird because I feel like there's like the Norwegian way of doing stuff and the Scandinavian way of doing stuff where they gear everything towards rehabilitation to get them back into society and functioning. And in the U.S., I feel like we don't gear it towards rehabilitation. We gear it towards punishment. Mm-hmm. We're going to punish you. Yeah. And, you know, I think there are fair critiques of the Norwegian system, like, you know, in Scandinavia. Who's the guy? Anders Breivik. He killed all these kids. And then he was complaining because he's like, I only have a PS2 and you guys need to give me like a newer video game system. So you can look at that and go, listen, man, you guys are being too fucking liberal. Fuck that guy. He had like 2 rooms that were his cell and he could walk in a fucking courtyard and shit. So I think there are genuine criticisms of that. But at the same time, what's fascinating is they have a significantly lower recidivism rate than we do. Right. So here, if you go to prison, it's very likely that you're going to end up back in prison. In those places, if you go to prison, you know, especially if it's like a lower level crime, they rehabilitate you and you get out and you're a functioning member of society. Yeah. So we can learn something from them. In my mind, I think there should be some sort of a middle ground. Like, I think prison should be used. Yes, in some instances, people need fucking punishment. In some instances, of course. But we need to mix that in many instances with a healthy dose of rehabilitation as well. So we are, I don't know, functioning like an actual society as opposed to jailing more people in this country than any other country in the world.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that punishment by itself helps anybody. I mean, if you take a guy and you lock him in a cell and he's in that little tiny cell until his body stops working and he dies, is that helping anybody? I mean, who is that helping?
So are there some situations? So for me, I feel like there are some situations where I get the idea of like life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I get it too. Yeah. I get it too. But I mean, why? Look at a Ted Bundy character, someone along those lines, just indefensible, right? Some serial killer, psychopath. What do? Fucking kill him. Just
I was going to ask you, how do you feel about the death penalty, but now I know.
Kill him. Kill him. Just come on, man. There's not enough time in the world to fix Ed Gein or who was the fucking clown? William Gacy. The clown guy who killed all those kids and buried them in his backyard.
Yeah, there are some
Cleveland?
people.
Is that Cleveland? Somewhere in Ohio? It's your place, buddy.
There are some people who are just, the point you're making is there are some people who are too far gone.
When I say your place, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Jamie. For people who are just listening, like, why is he fucking with Kyle and saying he's involved with the clown? It's just in Ohio. It might not have even been Ohio. It might have been Pittsburgh. Somewhere dark and cloudy.
So the point you're making is that there are people who are too far gone.
Yes.
And I agree with that 100%.
I think so.
But my whole thing on the death penalty is I've always thought the idea of it in principle is something I get. Like, you could point out all those people who did those horrific things and, like, there's no hope of them rehabilitating and they're total monsters. And I say, philosophically, I have no problem getting rid of those people because you're just eliminating a problem.
Right.
But in my mind, the reason why I'm not in favor of the death penalty is because 4% of the time we get the wrong people.
Right.
So if you have a system where you're guaranteed to kill the wrong people some percentage of the time, then what we're saying is, well, we're going to let the state murder people 4% of the time, and that's something I just can't have my tax dollars going towards. You know what I mean?
I agree with you 100%, but is it any better to have those people locked up in a cage for the rest of their life until their body stops working?
Well, I guess the idea is if you have them locked up and you have people like the Innocence Project working on trying to overturn cases where there was a wrong conviction, that eventually you can right the wrong of getting those wrong people 4% of the time. But it's finite if you say, no, we're gonna put you on death row and you're going to die in 8 years or whatever it is, then, you know, sometimes you can't finish the case in time to overturn it. And so that's my whole thing about the death. Like, I agree philosophically, and that's something many people to my left have come after me for and said, no, you're wrong. You should be against the death penalty in principle. But I say, no, I get it theoretically and philosophically, but it's just that when you actually implement it, there are pragmatic problems, like you're going to kill the wrong fucking people, and I'm not okay with that. You know what I mean?
I mean, I don't know if it's better to kill the wrong people or to keep the wrong people locked in a cage suffering for the rest of their life. Where did William Gacy live?
John Wayne Gacy was Chicago.
Chicago.
His middle name was Wayne? John Wayne?
Yeah, John Wayne Gacy.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Why did I say it was William Gacy? I'm thinking William Macy, the guy from Shameless. I'm all fucked up.
Haven't seen the show.
Yeah, well, we were talking about something before the podcast, and I think this is really the future, whether it's in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes. But I think that they're going to be able to read minds, and I think we're not far away from that. We're going to really be able to know the actual contents of your thoughts, whether or not you really did murder a bunch of kids and bury them in your backyard. We're going to know, and until then, we're dealing with a bunch of really big fucking problems. One of the biggest problems is people's memories. People's memories are so bad. They're so bad. So when you have eyewitness testimony and you can convict people wrongly, which happens every day, and they think they're right. They think they really do believe they're right. They really believe it. That's a fucking problem, man. That's just a giant problem, is the human memory is incredibly flawed. And when someone's life is on the line and, you know, you're going to convict a guy who didn't do anything, he just looks kind of like what you remember this person who murdered that guy looks like.
Well, that's where a lot of the things get overturned, is because they have DNA evidence that overrides whatever the testimony was of the people at the time. And speaking of technology advancing, there's many scary aspects to it, but you know, the elephant in the room to me is the fact that look at what the NSA is already doing.
Yeah.
They're already spying on absolutely everybody in the country. They collect all of our metadata and store it at some multi-billion-dollar facility in Utah. And then, like, there's no doubt that all this technology is going to be used against us. You know what I mean?
Well, it certainly can be if they choose to. Like if you become a guy like like Julian Assange or anyone who leaks something, and then they go, hey, let's go pull up Kyle's text message records. Oh, look, he likes cross-dressing and fucking, you know,
For the record,
shit
I
in
don't.
people's mouths. Whatever it is. I
Right.
mean, they can, and then they could leak that to whatever media people that they're in bed with. There's just a lot of shit that they can get away with.
Well, that's partially what they did with Eliot Spitzer. Because Eliot Spitzer, they called him the Sheriff of Wall Street because he cracked down on Wall Street. And then, oops, look at that. His credit card information from the brothel he went to was leaked to a press outlet. Well, how the fuck did you get the credit card information? Because they knew what they were looking for because they were trying to bring him down.
Right. Well,
but
worse than that, he was actually going after brothels.
That's what I was going to say. And I think it was his hypocrisy that brought him down and not the fact that he went to a brothel.
Yeah.
It's that you're cracking down on brothels and going to brothels at the same time.
He was arresting people.
Yeah. That's fucked up.
He was ridiculous. It's like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense that he thought that he could get away with that. But the real problem with that guy is that guy was an interesting politician.
Yeah.
Like he really did have some really good points. A lot like Weiner.
Well,
like
Weiner
is kind of interesting in that way too. He had some really good points. He's a great speaker, but he was also a freak.
Did you see the documentary on him?
I did.
I mean, you want to talk about...
I didn't finish it though. I watched part of it and then I just got bored.
I mean, you want to talk about a fall from grace.
Yeah.
He was somebody who was viewed as like, oh, this fire breather on the left who just goes after people and doesn't take any shit.
Yeah.
And then fast forward and it's like, oh, you got caught, sending dick pics to like 80,000 women, some of them underage, and I feel so bad for his wife.
Was sending dick pics while he was holding his kid. He was holding his kid, sending pictures of him with his kid in his arms with his boner.
That's one of those scandals where it's like, nope, you're not coming back from that. Everybody's like, fuck off.
This is what I said. This is what I said on the podcast. And I'm going to say it right now. I think he's in jail right now, right? Is he in jail?
I don't know if he's in jail. I don't know.
Might be going to jail. Andrew, you're a comic. You just don't know it. You just don't know it. I guarantee you he's a comic. He just never did it. And he just went into politics. And, he's a real good speaker. He's kind of a funny guy.
Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about comedy. I really did. Because, I've had, I've done a few live things in my life. I did a live show once, and then, but I also did best man speeches in front of rooms of, over 100 people. The first best man speech I did, I cried like a bitch. It was the saddest thing ever. I'm up there talking about one of my best friends, and I'm like, and we used to wrestle on the trampoline. It was pathetic.
Why is that pathetic though? That's just emotions. Well, you care about the guy.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is that people came up to me after and they liked it and they were like, "Oh man, that was great. It was heartfelt." I was like, I barely fucking said a word that anybody could understand because I was blubbering.
Yeah, but that's okay. But I think there's a real problem that people have with avoiding emotions. I
was too vulnerable in front of people I didn't know. That's
Doesn't
the
matter.
thing.
Who
Okay,
cares?
well, you're defending me. Thank you for that. But the second best man speech I gave, I went into it thinking like, okay, I'm gonna
crush
a little bit. I was thinking that a little bit, but so I like to when I talk, I like to have just bullet points of what I want to talk about and just a loose outline, and then I'll riff off of it. Mm-hmm. And what happened was all the lines that I thought would get a laugh did not get a laugh, but all my throwaway lines got good laughs. So I was amazed by that. And then also I was amazed at the fucking rush of getting a room to hang on your every word and to genuinely laugh at what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so every time you do stand-up, is that the feeling you get?
You definitely get a rush. There's no doubt about it. You crush. You get a rush. Yeah. You get well, it's a different rush in different size places. Like there's more of a surreal thing. When you get there's an area you get to like around 5,000, 6,000 people where it gets
That's
real.
A lot of people.
It gets real weird, man. It gets fucking weird. That gets weird. Like almost like you're doing a show then more than you're connecting with people.
Sure.
Whereas you're going to come to the Comedy Store tonight, that's a intimate place. That's 150 people. That's tight, little small room, and that's like you're there. You're there with the people. It's different. That's a rush too, though. It's a different rush. It's all a rush, but your responsibility to the material and the delivery sort of overrides the rush because you can't really get caught up in it and go, wow, this is amazing, because you have to be thinking about the timing. You have to be tuned in to exactly what you're thinking about. You can't be thinking about, oh, this is getting a lot of great laughs. You have to honestly be thinking about the actual subject because people fucking know what you're thinking about, man.
It's weird, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a type of hypnosis. I think, and I don't mean hypnosis like you trick the people into doing something, but I mean that like you mind meld with the audience in some sort of a weird way.
People know when you're on some sort of a script, and they know when you're talking from the heart.
Yeah.
And it's really strange because you could have somebody who's well-versed in going through a script, but there's still something that's missing from what they're saying. And I feel like that's one of the many reasons why this podcast is very popular, because you get people on here and you just have a conversation, and you two are really connecting, and then you're also really connecting with the people who are watching because you're just having a conversation. It's like you're at a bar and everybody's just kind of talking, and it's not like people come here and they're like, let me now go to my point that I was going to make on this and this, because that's when people start to yawn. And that's actually why I think a lot of the older shows, like, not to shit on the late night hosts, but that's why I feel like that's kind of dying out, and there's this giant rise of the internet, because that's all very segmented and structured, and you have to go in and out real fast.
Yeah.
And there's nothing human about it. It's almost like it's celebrities telling you, we're on this different level, and you're going to watch us be on this different level, as opposed to just being a regular person.
What's it like working with Spielberg? Well, it's interesting. Steven is a amazing director.
Yeah.
It's just
So
what he
douchey.
does is, yeah, it's
just so
weird.
douchey.
And also, you would be like the talk show host, so you'd be sitting there, and I'd be sitting like this.
Yeah, we'd be like this.
Which is weird. And I'd be turning sideways facing you. I mean, it's so follow leader copycat, because this is just the way they did it with Jack Parr
Right.
back in the fucking 1800s, whatever the fuck that was.
Right.
And they go from there to Jimmy Kimmel, who does it the same way.
And then the first time somebody breaks the fucking mold, everybody's like,
what is this?
this is brilliant.
What
Why
is
aren't we
this?
doing more of this? This makes sense.
I mean, you could kind of do this conversation in front of a large group of people. I mean, a lot of people do live podcasts.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little
they're
different,
weird.
though.
Yeah, they're weird.
You feel so like that, too?
They're
because
weird.
I don't know. I feel like there's an energy that you get from the audience where you kind of try more to do those punchy one-liners as opposed to
100%.
just flowing.
100%. Yeah, you do. And sometimes it's great. Like, I've done some live ones before with friends, and it's great. And we did the End of the World podcast. We did a live podcast from the Comedy Store at the night of the election. And during the election, we realized that Trump, we were saying it's the end of the world no matter who wins.
Because you're right.
Yeah, but when Trump won, I mean, Bill Burr was just on fire in front of this fucking...
That guy's smart, man.
Oh,
Bill
he's-
Burr's smart.
Not just smart, but that he had material about this that was just perfect, and he just was crushing. And there was a panel of like 6 other comics. We're all just laughing and talking shit. That
Right.
was a lot of fun, and it worked. That worked. That's one of the rare times it worked. But the way we did it was, we had a chair set up, or a table set up, and then we all sat facing the audience and just talked, you know, like a regular podcast, but in front of a live crowd. And then someone would come out, like Brian Hennigan would come out and give us the updates. Trump is ahead by 18 points.
So did you see that coming? Trump winning or no?
I thought it was entirely possible. I didn't see it coming. I felt like everybody was so convinced that Hillary was going to win. I just felt like that was probably what was going to happen.
So I feel like one of the reasons why my show got popular over time is I'm sucking my own dick, and this sounds so gross, but but I actually predicted or pretty early on when it was clear Hillary was going to get the nomination.
Right.
I was sounding the alarms, and I was saying, listen, Hillary versus Trump is a worst case scenario because Hillary Clinton is the status quo. She is the establishment. She is business as usual. She doesn't have a message. She doesn't have a vision. All she's doing is spewing platitudes and cliches, break down the barriers, stronger together, doing identity politics nonstop, which is nothing but pandering and not talking about policy substance. And then, like we touched on earlier, you had Donald Trump, who I disagree with him on virtually everything, but the guy knows how to fucking play to a crowd, knows how to tell people what they want to hear. So when he's in front of a blue-collar audience, he's out there ripping the trade deals and saying, I'm going to keep your jobs in the country and it's going to be amazing.
Right.
And that's something that landed. And then when you have Hillary so dumb as to not campaign in, Michigan and some Ohio, I think she went to, but some of the Rust Belt states, well, the reason he ended up winning is because of the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
So, and my whole point was, Trump is a populist, and admittedly, when push came to shove, now that he's elected, a fake populist because he has Goldman Sachs throughout his administration and he's serving Wall Street. But a fake populist will always beat a status quo politician.
Right.
Because people are sick and tired of business as usual, and they feel like, well, I'm getting shafted now, and she's coming along telling me I'm going to keep everything the same. Why the fuck would I be happy and excited to vote for her?
It was like there was so many things that were in place that were against her. First of all, she has absolutely poor health. And it was admitted by her husband that she had fallen down and cracked her head open and had pretty severe brain injury that she took more than 6 months for her to recover, according to Bill. We saw her fainting all the time. I mean, she
Yeah, that was creepy at the 9/11 thing.
That's not good. She's just, and they were, she had the flu. I've had the flu. I don't fall asleep while I'm standing up. I mean, that shit ain't good. That's not good. And that was just one thing. The other thing is, she's just a disingenuous person. When the whole Comey thing with the FBI, there was a video that came out where he explained what the charges were and what they had found about the emails, and then she explained the version of it. She's just not honest.
Yeah.
Then it was the whole gay marriage thing. She didn't support gay marriage till 2013.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy. That's crazy. And then here's the other thing. She's a woman. there's a lot of sexists. There's a lot of people that didn't want a woman to be president, period, especially not a woman that could point to all these flaws. Poor health, liar, dishonest, in bed with Wall Street, gets paid by banks hundreds of thousands of dollars, won't release the transcripts, Clinton Foundation seems kind of shady. There's so many different things that were against her.
Well, she put the fact that she's a woman front and center.
I'm
with her was her campaign slogan.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when you try to shove identity politics down people's throats? They tell you to fuck off.
Yeah,
Because they go, I don't care that you're a woman.
Yeah.
I want to know what you're going to do for the country.
But the people that were into that were telling her that that was going to be her key to victory. We're going to make history.
And they're wrong. Nobody knows less about politics than Democratic strategists in Washington, D.C. Because as of right now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to fight back against their base. So their base, it's people like me, and what we want, I'm very clear about what I want. It's not hard to please people like me who are on the left. We want a living wage. We want Medicare for all, which, every other modern nation has one version or another of a single-payer healthcare system. We just want to be like the rest of the modern world. We want free college. Again, Slovenia has fucking free college. We can't afford to do free college when we just spent $7 trillion on the Iraq War. We want to end the wars. So I have very clear policy goals that I want. And guess what? Bernie Sanders came along, spoke about those issues. He went from being this obscure senator from fucking Vermont, which has a population of 12 people, to getting 47% of the vote in a race against a political juggernaut, a behemoth that had the entire Democratic Party machine behind her.
Not only that, they were rigging the primaries.
100%, yes, and that's what we learned, and that's why Julian Assange went from being viewed as, oh my God, this guy's great, that's how the left used to view him, and now many people, Democratic partisans, are like, fuck this guy.
Russia, he's with Russia.
And I was just talking to you about this before the podcast. I was watching CNN before I came here for about an hour and 30 minutes, non-stop Russia coverage, non-stop fucking Russia coverage, and then guess what? Now when Donald Trump goes out there, and he's a fake news CNN, everybody's going to go, yeah, you know what? All they do is fucking talk about Russia all day long, so maybe the guy has a point. So the institutions that we have and the establishment as it is, it opens up the door for a demagogue and a liar and a fake populist like Trump to come in there and exploit it.
Yeah.
So if you give people a choice between a broken system that's fucking them over, where half of workers in America make $30,000 a year or less, you give people an option between keep everything as is or take a fucking human bowling ball and throw it at the establishment.
Yeah.
They're going to say, okay, fuck it, we'll roll the dice on this Trump guy. And then meanwhile, look at his agenda and everything that he's done since he's got elected. It's the opposite of his populist rhetoric on the campaign trail. His fucking tax bill had a 33% favorability rating, and they were bragging about it when they passed it. This is a bill that cuts corporate taxes from 35% to 21% at a time when corporations are already paying a historically low percentage of the tax burden, and it raises taxes on everybody that makes $75,000 a year or less over a 10-year period. I mean, you couldn't get a piece of legislation that spits in the face of working people more than that, but the saddest thing is this guy is so comically easy to beat, but the Democrats can't get their shit together because they're fighting back against the grassroots who care about the issues because they're in bed with corporations. The Democrats are in bed with corporations, just like the Republicans are. So if you got this corrupt party establishment and they're trying to tamper down the wing of the party that can actually win, well, then guess what? You're going to keep losing to these monsters, these comic book villains on the right.
Don't you think that the parties themselves, there's a giant issue with the momentum behind them? The lobbyists, the special interest groups, the embedded just sort of ecosystem that they both carry with them. For someone new to step in and sort of represent the actual people like yourself that have this very clear view.
Well, that's why
they have so many people that they're beholden to by the time they get into a position where they can even run for president. They've all been vetted and checked and...
Well, that's why there are some keys here. So one of the most important things is when you look at a politician who's running, thing number one is check. Do they take corporate PAC money? If the answer is yes, fuck them. Not interested. If you don't take corporate PAC money, that means, okay, at least I know you're being honest and you're being open, and when you talk, I can believe you.
But the problem comes along is that successful politicians, someone who could actually possibly win, they do take corporate PAC money, but they're a better alternative than, say, Pence. If Pence decides to be president then you go, okay, we got to choose the lesser of two evils. That's essentially what we did with Hillary.
Right. That's right. And
get into that weird position where, yeah, she's kind of corrupt, but look, it's going to be historic. She's a woman. She's infinitely more qualified than him. And
yeah, the lesser evilism thing is a big issue because that's the game that's played on the American people. And I think Americans know that it's being played on them. You know, like if you look at the opinion polls on Congress oscillates between a 14% approval rating and a 21% approval rating in what's supposed to be a democracy. So in other words, you vote these people in, and then 2 weeks later you go ask people, hey, what do you think of the Congress you just voted in? And like 14% of them are like, I think they're good. And everybody else is like, fuck them. So we all know that there's a problem here, and the root of the problem is the corruption of the system and the corporate money flooding our politics. And then the politicians get in there, and all they do is represent the corporations, and they don't represent the people. So to your point, yeah, in order to rise up through this system, that's why the establishment loved Hillary Clinton, because she played by the rules in this corrupt system.
Yeah.
Did you know that her and Bill, through their entire career, they raised over $3 billion in private donations?
That's hilarious.
And that's how you get to the point where it was wall to wall. Obviously, she's going to win. This is a no-brainer, and everybody loves her. No, everybody loves her on fucking Wall Street and in Washington, D.C. But, and again, just to go back to the Bernie Sanders point, now we're seeing more politicians coming up that are in his model, where they say, I'm not going to take any corporate PAC money. I don't even want a super PAC if I run for president. And then what happens is people know at the end of the day, I can trust that person, even if I don't agree with that person. And that's why Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in the country by a mile and a half. He's the most popular by a long shot. And the reason is there are even many people on the right who look at him and go, you know what? I don't agree with him on abortion. I don't agree with him on this or that, but I trust the guy. And I think he's fighting for me.
Well, there's definitely that. I mean, he's a guy that really has a clean record in terms of like the money that he's taken. That alone is very unique. And that alone makes him stand out from the other people that were running for president. When you look at the future, though, like who other than him? And the problem with him is he's another one. He's not of good health. He's
1,000 years old. We could just say it.
It's also, well, there's people that are his age that are in very good shape. Like, how old is he?
75? 4?
74.
Jamie, could you check that?
My friend Aaron Snyder had a podcast the other day with a gentleman who's 78 years old who goes on backpack solo elk hunts. And he rides mountain bikes and exercises and does all this shit. Like, there are people out there that are his age that take care of their body. But the problem with Bernie, 76.
76,
his head sits somewhere in the middle of his sternum.
He's got
he's got terrible posture. It's like he looks like a schlubby, slumpy, sort of unhealthy person. He doesn't. And I know that's not important. But it is kind of important to people. You want someone to...
Yeah, you're saying the optics of it matter to an extent. Sure. I mean...
Who's out there?
Well, there are a few good politicians. So, for example, Ro Khanna is a politician. He's actually from California. He's a congressman.
I like the name.
He has risen...
It's unusual.
He's risen through the ranks.
Sounds like a Star Trek guy.
Well, he's a badass. He's a badass.
Is he?
Yes.
Legit badass?
In fact, I could maybe hook it up. If you wanted to have him on the podcast, I'll talk to him and see if he would want to come on. I think he would. But he's a young guy. And
how old?
Really smart guy. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's young.
You have to be what, 39 or something?
To run for Congress? 35? Jamie, check that.
How old are you?
This is the Jamie fact-checking hour.
President's 35.
There you go. President's 35. There you go.
That's so young. I was retarded when I was 35.
I'm retarded now, and I'm 30.
I was so fucking stupid when I was 35. How can you allow people to be 35 years old and run for president? That's so crazy.
Yeah. But, I mean, at the same time, I'm sure there are some people who can do the job. But anyway, back to Ro Khanna. Ro Khanna, he's a badass. He doesn't take any corporate PAC money. He's got a great record of fighting for the people. He's one of the few people who, remember when we were talking about going to Syria and doubling down on being in Syria? Well, Trump recently announced we're staying there indefinitely. So we have a permanent military occupation in Syria. Ro Khanna is one of the very few voices in Congress. I mean, all the Democrats should be out there saying, what the fuck are we doing here? Let's get at it. What's the point of being there?
Right.
Ro Khanna was one of the few who actually spoke up about it and actually said, no, this is crazy. Number one, we shouldn't be there. Number two, we haven't even had a vote on it in Congress. The whole idea is if you go do a military intervention, according to the Constitution, you have to get a declaration of war from Congress. And Ro Khanna's like, this is crazy. We're nowhere near abiding by the Constitution here. We have to at least have a vote on it. He's one person. Tulsi Gabbard is another politician who's fantastic.
These are weird names. Let me see this Ro Khanna person first. Let me see what they look like. I'm going to give them the sniff test. This is how Americans do it. You look at him, man, I don't know about this guy.
Show him Tulsi Gabbard. I'm very curious what Joe Rogan has to say about Tulsi Gabbard.
Let me go with the Ro Khanna person first.
Sure, yeah.
My first guess on spelling didn't pull up what I wanted.
Rokhanna.
That's one name.
There you go.
That can't be one name.
No, it's not. It's
Ro
two.
is the first name.
Ro
Yeah,
is the first name. Khan is the last name.
What? R.O. is his first name?
That's what caught me off guard.
Fuck out of here with that. Let me see what he looks like.
He's from Silicon Valley. How do you say it? Silicon or Silicon?
Silicon. Now you're confusing me. Silicon Valley. I think I say Silicon. I don't know if that's right though.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
he that fucking name. I don't know about that name. But then again,
Listen,
Barack
Hussein Obama got elected president. We could throw the name
go
worries
back
out
to
of the
picture.
window.
Let me scrutinize this fella. Well, we got a lot of good things here going. First of all, the diversity factor is high. It's off the charts.
No, but what I love about Ro is that he doesn't do the fake bullshit identity politics of like, I'm not white, therefore, I'm great. He does. In fact, he's one of the very few politicians who regularly speaks up about people in the middle of the country who got their fucking factory jobs outsourced because corporations wanted to make more money, and he's against all these trade deals and
Look
stuff.
at that dork with the t-shirt on, fired up, ready for Ro. Dude, okay, I need you to just rethink your life.
That looks like a young, fatter Mario Lopez to the right too. See that? Doesn't it?
A little bit. Sorry, Mario. No offense. Is that him with Ted Kennedy down there in the lower right-hand corner?
Yeah, but I think that's
what is that about?
That's split screen. Oh no, that's Asian Ted Kennedy.
I'm sorry, whoever that person is, but in the tiny screen, it did look like Ted Kennedy before you blow it up. Yeah. Okay. So this guy.
Show him Tulsi Gabbard.
And see, so he's a congressman in California.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah, Tulsi, T-U-L-S-I.
And so is he one of the people that's being thought of as a possible Democratic candidate?
Well,
because a lot of people are talking right now about
I'll tell you who's going to run in 2020.
Oprah.
Okay, no disrespect to you, Oprah, if you happen to see this, but fuck off. No disrespect to you, The Rock, but fuck off.
Tulsi's kind of hot.
I knew you were going to say that.
She's kind of hot.
That's why I kept insisting you show him.
She's very
Hawaii,
pretty.
right?
She's from Hawaii?
I think so.
I like two things. I like both of those things.
But so, in 2020...
Maybe a little too hot. Let me see. Let me close in on her. Make her a little larger.
Joe Rogan has spoken. Tulsi, your chances
She's
are done.
very pretty. She's a beautiful woman. I mean, is America ready for a beautiful woman to run for president with all her white privilege?
She's a brilliant woman. And
I believe you.
Yeah.
But she's also beautiful.
Also takes no corporate PAC money. Also is against all these unnecessary regime change wars. So I think she's...
Also goes to spin class. Also does box jumps.
But 2020...
Was she in the military?
She was, yes.
Interesting. That's a positive. She's got a lot of those little colored things on her shirt.
And again, she's one of the strongest voices against going to Syria and all that.
You know who also had a lot of those colored things on his shirt? L. Ron Hubbard. Remember?
Sea Org.
The Sea Org.
That guy was fucking creepy.
I don't think his were legit, though. I'm going to go out on a limb. Yeah, she looks good. I like it.
So for 2020, I'll tell you who's going to run.
Okay.
Bernie's going to run again.
He is?
Yes.
How can he do that?
1,000 different signs that he's going to run.
He'll be 78 years old.
He's riding a fucking wave, though,
I'm
man.
on GH. I've been lifting. I'm going to try to straighten my neck out. If I try to pull it back up into its normal position, I got one of those things. It hangs from the door. I'm stretching my neck.
He's like Larry David, right? He looks like Larry David.
Yeah. What about Oprah?
Oprah's not running.
Bullshit.
She's not running.
She's going to run.
I'm calling her right now. She's not running.
Come on, son.
No, she's not running.
She's running.
Well, that'd be fodder for us to laugh at for a long time.
I don't know, man. She might win.
No, she's not
How about
winning.
fucking NBC? Whoever the dork is that was running the NBC Twitter that was saying our president, like they
about Oprah.
Remember that? Yeah.
Oh,
dude,
no.
When Oprah gave that speech, that was it, the Golden Globes. She gave this big giant speech.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "She's got a vagina. Let her talk." And she's giving this big powerful speech.
Hollywood is so fucking insular. They love sniffing their own farts and sucking their own dicks.
Wow. Clueless actress Stacey Dash is running for Congress in California.
God.
But wait a minute, Stacey Dash is like a Republican. She's like a hardcore.
big time. She was on Fox News.
Trump supporter, Republican. Yeah, she was from. Clueless, the movie. They meant to say.
Right. Yeah, that's what it said.
Not that she's clueless.
She's not clueless.
I read it wrong. But maybe she is clueless too. But Stacey Dash is like super hardcore.
Oh, yeah.
Super hardcore Republican. Fox commentator, known for controversial opinions.
So Oprah,
Oprah's
no,
running.
not running.
Bro, I'm telling you.
I'm telling you.
Stedman's going to be the first man.
The Rock not running. Mark Zuckerberg
Don't.
wants to run, but he might not run.
Why don't you think he'll run? Is he old enough? Is he like 34?
I think he's old enough,
He'll probably
but
be like, get in under the wire.
how fucking goofy is that guy, man?
I don't know. How goofy is he? You
He's
tell
goofy.
Me.
Show the picture of him like fucking feeding a lamb or some shit.
Isn't that okay to feed a lamb? What's wrong with this person?
I'm anti-lamb feeding. I'm taking a strong stance on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Someone wants lambs to starve to death. Tune in to the Secular Talk podcast.
Yeah, Mark Zuckerberg, he's been like doing this goofy tour where he goes to Iowa and pretends to eat with regular people. And he's like, I spoke to a guy named Ted today, and he has a interesting story. I hate the pandering where they try to... That's the thing, like when they bring up the personal stories and they're like pretending to care about some random dude in Kentucky.
Right.
It's like, fuck off. Just tell me what your ideas are. You don't have to do the fake empathy shit.
Right.
So I don't think he's going to run even though he wants to because he'll get his ass handed to him. Mark Cuban is another guy with a giant ego who's thinking about it, but I don't think he'll end up doing it.
I don't think they want that scrutiny. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot of shit comes out.
Yeah, I mean, think about who Trump was pre-election and Trump is now.
Yeah.
Before the election, he was kind of lovable. He's like this lovable, egomaniac, weirdo guy. I mean,
He had a
before
role.
the election.
Yeah.
Well, you know, let me take that back because there was all that birther shit that was pretty wacky. But pre-birther shit.
He was the guy who played the role of the I'm the big boss corporatist guy. Who's
I'm the guy
like,
with the I'm the Don
I'm the
King of
decision
real
maker.
estate. He was like
Yeah.
a bigger than life character, large hair, big fucking name on the buildings,
Yeah.
gold lettering everywhere, gold bathroom, gold toilet paper. Like you would
so
just
silly. Does he
he's-
not know that like there's such a thing as what's the word I'm looking for? Garish? Is that garish the word I'm looking
Yeah,
for?
I don't think he does know that. Well, he's old, man. With old people, that was like someone said it best, and it's one of my favorite quotes about Trump, that he is what a poor person imagines a rich person would be like.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a dumb person's idea of a smart person.
Yes.
Because he's very confident and he boasts, and like you say, gold fucking everything. It's almost like rappers who
Yeah.
are stunting.
Oh, yeah,
and they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I got my rolls, bitch.
Yeah, you got
like
your,
Trump
you-
is that.
You got your grill, Paul Wall style. You're showing all your rings. You're in front of your Lamborghini. A bunch of girls shaking their booty in front of you.
How did grills ever become a thing?
How did they not become a thing? Why don't I have one? That's the real question. We were going to get one. Paul
Yeah,
Wall's
I thought he
people
was
reached
gonna
out to us. They're going to hook us up.
You could actually maybe make grills popular.
I don't think so. I'm doing a good job with fanny packs, though. I'm telling you that.
Oh,
Sales are up. Sales are up. I'm pretty sure
Oh.
fanny packs are back.
You know what I haven't given up on?
What?
Cell phone
Holder. I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Because people gave up on that a long time ago and they'll make fun of me, but I'm like, fuck you, it's coming back in style and I'm rocking it.
Somebody had a very funny joke. I forget who it was. I wish I could give them credit. But it was something along the lines of that's the type of black guy that's unthreatening to white people. The type of black guy that wears a cell phone holder on the outside on those, one of those buckle clip cell phone holders.
Just don't have him wear it around a cop because they might think it's a gun.
That's right. Don't reach for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't reach for anything. The grill thing, I don't know. I think a gold tooth would be kind of fly. Like one. Like maybe a fang. Or a gold fang.
Because I think that they think it shows status, but in reality it shows an attempt to hit higher status. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Well, it's like that Jay-Z song, 99 Problems, but a bitch ain't one. You know, if you grew up with holes in your zapatos, you'd celebrate the minute you were having dough. I'm
Right,
like,
so
fuck
what-
critics, you can kiss my
Yeah.
whole asshole.
So when you don't grow up with much, then you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to fucking get a lot, and then I'm going to show off that I have a lot so you know I got this shit.
It's a giant part of the culture. I mean, and even in the more reserved people like Nas, like who's like a more lyrical artist type character. Father was a jazz musician.
Sure.
He just drives a Mercedes and his pictures in front of nice things. It's just a part of the whole culture. Like you gotta have nice shit. You
Yeah.
can't be living in a log cabin spitting out rap music. Nobody wants to hear like anybody from like what's that show? Life Below Zero, the show where they're all in Alaska.
Alaska, sure.
Yeah.
hmm
Nobody wants those people rapping.
But I feel like if somebody does that, then that for that person, it really is about the art of what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but it's not going to happen. No one's going to listen to a fisherman rap. Like a dude who's just like
Fisherman?
salmon fishing, like a commercial, like one of those dudes from Deadliest Catch. If one of those guys had like when they're, you can't be a rapper. You smell like fish. You got to be clean. You have to have gold teeth or something. You have to have a grill.
That's
There's Paul Wall.
Oh, he lost a lot of weight.
It looks good.
Is that beard fake?
Yeah.
I think it's just trimmed. Why do you think it's fake? Because it looks too good?
It looks like. I
You're
mean,
a hater.
I'm not hating because
You sound like a hater.
I just Mengel the shit out of my hair, so it looks like he put some just Mengel on that.
Maybe. I don't know. He might have darkened up his.
Paul, I feel your pain, man. With the I've been dyeing my hair since I was 18. How pathetic is that?
Your hair started going gray at 18?
18.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know, and I have no idea if it was genetics or if it's stress or whatever the fuck. But
Are you under stress?
I don't. I mean, no, not any more than a guy who has to fucking go to a coal mine or some shit. I'm privileged compared to
Right.
most people, so no,
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think it might just be genetics. I'm not sure, but it's.
Well, working for yourself is a little difficult, though, right? Like not having a steady paycheck where you have to. And you were also involved in the YouTube demonetization wave that hit after that PewDiePie cocksucker decided it was a good idea to use the N-word on video game streams.
Well, just for the record, when I was an awkward young white boy who used it too, but with an A at the end, not an ER. There's a
Did
big
you?
difference.
Did you throw it around? Did you throw it around like singing along to lyrics? If I sing it along to lyrics, I roll my window up first out of respect.
Right, and then you do
Make
it.
sure it's, and then I just sort of mouth it like
Yeah.
I don't really say it out loud.
So in the rap songs, yeah, of course I did it in the rap songs, but also just being an awkward young white boy from New Rochelle and having a lot of black friends growing up, and we just threw it around like nobody's business.
What year were you in New Rochelle?
So I'm born and raised there. So I was born in '88, and
Right.
you know, in probably when I was 20 is when I left there.
Dude, so when I was living in New Rochelle, you were living in New Rochelle.
Yeah.
Because I was living there in like 91. That's when I lived there.
Okay, but now I'm going to make you laugh because I was just talking to Corin on the way here about this. So I feel like I have a memory of being a kid watching Fear Factor. You're on it. And then I was so young that my mom, after it, was like, okay, it's bedtime, honey.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's so weird. I was a little fucking
That
kid
makes
watching
sense.
Joe Rogan, and now I'm doing his podcast.
Well, that totally makes sense because that show was 16 plus years ago, right? 2001. I want to say 2 or 1, maybe 2.
Let me ask you a question about when you were doing that show. Did you feel, because you're a really smart guy and you're interested in a lot of different things, and I can tell just by talking to you, you're somebody who needs to pave your own path and be your own boss, and it's clear. So did you feel like almost like a caged animal when you were doing Fear Factor? Because like you were forced to show up at a certain time every day, and
No, I felt lucky that I had a job where I could make a shitload of money. It
was that your
pretty
first?
easy.
No, you had news radio before that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had news radio, which was extremely, extremely fortunate. I mean, I couldn't have stepped in shit any deeper than with news radio. It was just total luck. I literally had like 3 acting classes ever because I had to take them because Disney gave me a development deal because of just stand up.
And what is that? They just throw money at you and say do
Back
something?
in the 90s, they were doing that because they had seen what happened with Roseanne. They had seen what happened with Tim Allen and Seinfeld. And they're like, that's what you got to do. You got to find someone who you think is funny and develop a show around them. And it worked with some people. Brett Butler had a show. You know, there was a lot of that going on. And so they were trying to do that. And so I had a development deal, and then I had a show that I was on Fox for a few episodes, and it got canceled. And then I got on news radio. So I'm on news radio 6 years into my stand-up career. I was literally a beginner in terms of stand-up. Like if you talk to stand-ups.
6 years considered a beginner, you
Oh,
say?
yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a beginner. Yeah, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. I took a guy on the road with me recently that had been doing comedy for 7 years, and he's got 20 minutes of material.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, it's fucking to grind, son. And there's other people like more advanced, like Tony Hinchcliffe, 7 years in, had already done a Netflix special.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it really varies. It varies.
And comedy you feel more is like your baby than any of the acting stuff, right?
Oh yeah, well the acting stuff was just an opportunity to make money. And
Sure.
it was also an opportunity to get people to come see you do stand up. But it was weird. Like to all of a sudden be acting with Phil Hartman and Andy Dick and Stephen Root and Maura Tierney is like, I shouldn't even be here.
Well, how the fuck do you think I feel sitting across from Joe Rogan?
Dude, we're just talking.
I know, but it's
You're
just,
good at
it's
talking.
weird. Well,
This is
I
normal.
try.
It's normal
yeah,
stuff.
I mean, that is true.
It all becomes normal, man. I mean, I still get weirded out when I meet famous people that I really like.
Well, but there obviously are people who are, like Jack Nicholson, for example, is way more famous than you, but like,
Yeah.
there's not many people. Are you A-list? Would you say you're A-list?
No.
No?
No, I'm like a C-list person.
No, you're at
I
least
don't
B-list.
act. Yeah, I don't act. I'm not on TV. I'm C-list, and I'm a cage fighting commentator. You know, it's pretty easy to dismiss me. Yeah, I'm
Nah, I don't think
more
so.
C-list. A lot of people your age know who I am. It's a different
Everybody
world.
my age knows who you are.
It's different world. But so the Fear Factor thing was, I had done a lot of stuff after news radio that didn't work. Not a lot of stuff, but a few pilot scripts that I had gotten, a few meetings that I had with people that were kind of goofy. There was a lot of and I loved working with my friends from news radio. They were great. But I had also worked with a bunch of actors who were actors. It's not an environment. It's not a job that lends itself to authenticity.
Yeah.
It's a job that lends itself to conformity, because you're always auditioning for things, so you want everybody to like you. So you sort of pattern your likes and dislikes, your behavior patterns, your opinions to whatever. You lick your finger,
Yeah.
you put it in the air. Where's the wind blowing? I'm going that way, because
Sure.
that's the safest way to make a living. And there's a lot of that in Hollywood.
I was going to say, that gets back to my point about how insular they are.
Yeah.
How everybody in Hollywood's like, yeah, Oprah 2020 is fucking great. Meanwhile,
Exactly.
who the fuck is sitting in, Kentucky like, yeah, can't wait Oprah be president, that'd be great right there.
Yeah, well, maybe somebody. Maybe some
I don't think so,
housewives
man.
are wrestling with
Well,
menopause right
maybe
now
some
as we talk.
housewives, all Xanaxed out,
Yep.
sitting there like, yeah,
Drinking
Oprah's
wine,
wonderful.
yelling at their husband. That fucking piece of shit. He says he's taking on extra work, but he doesn't. So when Fear Factor came along, two things I thought. One, it was going to be canceled immediately. I was really convinced.
It went on forever.
Forever. 148 episodes, then we came back and did 7 more. But the getting attacked by dogs and making people eat.
Eating bull dicks.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way this is gonna last. This is crazy. And so I felt like at the very least it would give me some material, and it was a generous amount of money, and it was money that I was like, okay, if I do this and I keep doing this, I don't have to do other things. Like I can be free, and that. Having that ability to say no to things and to have fuck you money and to just not worry about how to pay your bills. I knew when I lived in New Rochelle, it was actually when I got my first development deal. And when I got my first development deal, there was this physical weight that lifted off of me, where I didn't have to worry, how am I going to pay my rent next month?
Yeah.
How am I going to pay my gas? How am I going to
Sure.
Because I went from that to having some money. And the feeling that I got, I was like, oh, okay, this is valuable. This isn't some bullshit idea. Like having money, I'm not saying like that being rich makes you happy. It's not. But having resources is a valuable thing. And having
Right.
the resources to not have to do something you don't want to do, and where you can pursue what you want to do, that's valuable as well.
So it's funny you bring that up, because I covered this study that came out a few weeks ago on my show, and apparently researchers found out that when you hit a certain level of happiness when you hit $75,000 a year, because I think they figured out that that's where people can generally pay the bills and be okay. And then they said, if you make up to $95,000, you do see a noticeable increase in happiness when you jump from $75,000 to $95,000. So that's when people pretty much across the board are like, okay, I'm good. And then everything after that, you're playing with house money. So they say, the difference between making $95,000 a year and $1 million a year, even though there's a big material difference there, in terms of how much it buys your happiness, there's a tapering effect when you hit that $95,000 threshold.
I think also the amount of work that you have to do to make $1 million a year significantly stresses you out. You don't have time to do things that you love. Like say if you have some hobbies that you really enjoy, you feel like I got to leave those alone for a while. I got to pursue my career and go after my career and really make it happen.
Yeah.
It's hard to balance that life comfort, appreciation for your existence here, and trying to make a living. And sometimes people get that way wrong, and they go all in on making a living, and then you become some fucking Harvey Weinstein guy who's just all about just vices and just filling your life up with things that try to make you happy because you've got $500 million in the bank and you're constantly working, and it's not a good example. Harvey Weinstein's a good example because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah,
but
fucking people in the ass and whatnot.
allegedly. The better example would be someone who works so they have a heart attack and then realizes they never had any fun, and now their health is deteriorated so radically that they can't have fun, and then they can't work and they can't even do what they do, and then they have to sort of reboot their life. mean, I just think it's very important to enjoy your time here. It's fucking fleeting. Like Kevin Smith just had a heart attack.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's a great guy.
Has he ever been on the podcast?
Yeah, a couple times. I've been on his. He's been on this one a couple times. He's awesome. He's just a sweet, a genuine sweetheart of a guy. He's one of those guys where if he doesn't like someone, I don't like him.
Oh,
I'm
so
like, wow.
you trust him that much that his
he's
judgment,
a sweetie.
right? Sure.
If Kevin Smith doesn't like, he's a really nice guy. Like if he doesn't like you, you must be a shit.
Right.
Like it just doesn't make any sense. And you know this, but my point is that this is fleeting. It doesn't,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm 50 years old. I became 50 years old. I don't know how that happened. It just keeps happening.
Well, it's funny.
You
I just
live.
turned 30. I just turned 30 on January 31st. It was the first birthday where I ever went,
Ooh. Yeah, I remember
like,
30.
shit just got a little real.
I remember 30 because I was dating a girl who was kind of a twat. She was just kind of a little, and not her fault. She's a little negative. She's like, I already thought you already were 30. I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I was like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
telling you
strange.
something's weird, and you're not even thinking about my perspective. You're like, I thought you already were 30. Like, what is
Date-
that? What, you saying I look 30? What, bitch? What are you saying?
It's
What are you saying?
that's a weird thing to date for like a surface thing. Like, oh, I think the person's older, or I think the person's worth a lot of money, or
I don't think that's what it was. She was a deeply unhappy person that was trying to diminish me.
well, that's not good.
Well, it happens.
Not a healthy relationship.
No, it wasn't a healthy relationship. Period. But there's a lot of that happens in relationships, right? People try to diminish each other, or they feel like they're in a bad position of power. Like they feel like they don't have the power in the relationship, so then they see that there's possibly a vulnerability, and instead of like soothing that person, they attack that vulnerability. That's how you know you're in a terrible, toxic
The
relationship.
power struggle, sure.
Oh yeah, man, that's the worst.
It becomes a weird Machiavellian fucking game.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like, well, the whole
yeah.
idea of a relationship is supposed to be that's where you go to get away from the bullshit of everything. So when that becomes part of the bullshit, it's
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Right, what are
And
we doing
people
here?
probably get addicted to that cycle.
They for sure
Yeah.
do, man. But it's hard to tell people while it's happening. It's hard to tell people, hey, man, you're in a bad relationship. Like this is not good. Like especially like rich guys with hot girls that like don't where it doesn't make any sense, and the
Yeah.
guy's like miserable, and you're like, hey, man, do you see what's happening? Like, this is
You
not
want your
going,
money.
This is not going to work, man.
Yeah.
And it fucking sucks, right? For that rich guy, if he's kind of a dork, he's like, well, what the fuck? Look, you know what else sucks? When the antelope has a limp, that sucks. And the lion's running at him, and there ain't a goddamn thing they could do. The universe does not care about whatever this imbalance is. But you,
Yeah.
as a thinking, cognitive species, like you as a conscious, aware individual, you gotta pay attention to that. Like, she's gonna get your money, or she's gonna leave. But either one, something's happening.
Yeah.
Something's happening.
So going back to the point you made about the rat race of life and people who get like obsessed with work and stuff like that, here's an interesting fact that nobody talks about it. I don't know why people don't think it's a bigger deal, but did you know that the United States is the only developed country that doesn't have paid time off by law? Every other modern country, so you go to Europe, for example, they have...
That's why we win, bro. Jesus,
That's why we have people who are hopped up on
whenever
pills
you're
and shit.
Talking to me about losers,
Gordon
all
Gekko.
these loser countries, and you're saying, why aren't we like these losers?
Yeah, those assholes with healthcare and fucking
Yeah, well,
vacation.
I definitely think people should get paid time off. And I definitely think, I mean, I've had some pretty intense arguments with wealthy people about a living wage. I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind if you think someone should be working for less than $15 for an hour of their time. So I'm telling you, a guy's going to go in your backyard, he's going to dig a fucking hole for an hour. You want to give him $5? How much do you want to give him? You want to give him $7?
Well,
Fuck
Joe,
you.
it's a market, and they need to be able to make contracts free of government intervention and
I don't care if
blah,
he's
blah,
12
blah.
years old. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's a 12-year-old. A 12-year-old digs for an hour. Give him $20. This is crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
the number is crazy. And people, well, the businesses won't be able to survive. No,
And that's
no,
just not true.
It's not true. The person who's making the most money at the top of the business won't make as much money as they do.
Exactly. In fact, whenever people bring that point up, oh, we can't raise the minimum wage because of reasons and stuff and things, I always bring up Australia.
I'd like to point out that I know jack shit about economics.
Okay, I know a little bit more than jack shit. But if you look up the minimum wage in Australia, Jamie, I think it's like $17 and change.
They pay
and
you in boomerangs over there, bro. Boomerangs and poison
They pay
spiders.
you in
They-
kangaroos.
Yeah, they give you a bucket of poison snakes. Hey, mate. Good luck.
So I think it's like $17 and change, and it's not. They didn't look at that. And are they a hellscape, Joe? Is Australia fucking
I love
falling
Australia.
apart?
All
Exactly.
bullshit aside, I think Australia's fucking amazing.
So spare me with the bullshit arguments
Let's
about how
read
you
this.
can't afford to pay people a living wage.
Read this. The Fair Work Commission has handed down its annual ruling on Australia's minimum wage, raising it by 2.4% to $672.70 a week. That's excellent. Which means an extra $15.80 per week for the 1.8 million workers who are paid the minimum wage. It will apply from July 1st and equates to a minimum hourly rate of $17.70. And that's in 2016, May 30th of 2016. That's an excellent...
Here, $7.25 here. Did you know that
crazy.
the minimum wage here today is actually worth less than the minimum wage was worth in 1968? Because if you account for inflation,
Right.
the minimum wage from 1968 would be about $10 and change today. So people who earn the minimum wage today make less than they made in 1968.
I believe it. What do you think that is? Do you think that's people just taking advantage of poor people? Is it do they really believe this is a stepping stone position that no one who's making minimum wage should ever consider this something they're going to do forever?
So I don't think that it's bad people. I don't think it's bad individuals who are trying to take advantage of people. I think the problem is the system. And the only reason why we don't have a system like Australia does with their minimum wage is because corporations have bought the government. So if you look at the polls, 80% of people want to raise the minimum wage, but we don't get that. And we don't get that because there's a tremendous amount of money being poured into our government from the likes of corporations that don't want to raise the minimum wage. So that's the only constituent group that has all the power, and they happen to be the only constituent group against having a living wage. So I think that's the general dynamic behind it. I do think that there are some small businesses where they're like, listen, I genuinely don't have the money to do this. You know what I mean? So for those cases, yes, we can have a separate conversation about those instances. But if you're a fucking giant corporation, don't bullshit us and tell us you can't afford to pay somebody a living wage.
Right.
Because in the case of like Walmart, for example, they don't pay their people a living wage, and then they dump all of their workers onto the Medicaid rolls and onto the social safety net. So taxpayers end up paying billions of dollars to support them.
Right.
Meanwhile, the people who are part of Walmart are running out the back door with all the fucking money.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, that's kind of undeniable. And the idea that a CEO should be able to earn that much more money than anybody else is kind of fucking crazy too. Like the whole CEO position is very bizarre. The fact that these guys get payouts when their companies go under and Wall Street bailouts.
Oh, God. I mean, stop and think about that for a second, because I don't think that people really got how ridiculous that was. So if you own a fucking deli or you own a dry cleaners and you go under, you know what they say? Tough shit.
Take care, buddy.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're part of a big bank or you're part of a fucking hedge fund that made the decisions that ended up crashing the fucking economy, not only do you not get fired, they say, in order to retain the talent of these people, we're going to have to pay them bonuses with the taxpayer money that just bailed out the corporation that they bankrupted.
That was hilarious. So it wasn't just that these people got bailed out, which was also very arguable, good position to argue against it.
That's right.
Like, I don't know what would have happened if we let the banks fail. I don't know how catastrophic that would have been to our economy, but it's arguable. Like, it was a debatable point. It's not a debatable point to give those fucking people millions of dollars of the taxpayers' money that's gone to the bailout so that they can get that bonus that's in their contract.
Correct.
And Obama was like, well, it's in their contracts. Well, fuck their contracts. Their contracts are no good now because the whole company went under. Your banks fucked up. You guys were running the banks. You don't get that $50 million you were promised.
And here's what they don't do. They never come out and say, okay, what we're going to do is a bailout of the people who are hurt by this. They always go, well, what we have to do is we have to give it to the companies that just made the decisions that fucked everything up in the first place and sit down and shut up.
Yeah, and those guys are already rich. That's what's even crazier. You're giving rich people tons of money after they fucked up and did a shitty job.
And this goes back to why Trump seemed appealing to so many people, is because you have, somebody who seems like a measured guy and a smart guy, and he said he was going to change the game, but then he also fucking bails out Wall Street.
Yeah.
And people look at that and they go, okay, you know what? Fucking anything but this, okay? Forget Hillary Clinton, forget the status quo. I'll take the guy who's going to break shit.
Yeah, I definitely think there was something like that. There was also that he didn't seem like one of them. He seemed like something different. Like, let's try something different. This is a new thing.
Yeah.
The old thing is not working. This whole person who talks like this, who gives these speeches in front of large groups of people, I'm going to promise you change and hope and dignity and whatever else.
Vague words that mean flowery things.
Noises you like to hear. So this gentleman, what's his name again? The guy with the short name?
Rokana?
Rokana, yeah. Ro. What's his full name? What's his full name?
No idea. I just know him as
Rhodesian
Ro.
Rigback. Something crazy. I mean, how does he speak? Does he speak like a politician? Or does he talk like a normal dude?
Nah, he talks like a normal dude.
Can we listen?
Very honest guy.
I want to smell him out.
If you want to, you can find a clip, I'm sure, on YouTube or something like that.
Clip. Let's break it down.
But
I'm willing to fucking put my chips in this guy's corner.
well, he's not going to run in 2020,
What?
but he's on.
Bro, don't be a pussy.
He's on the radar.
Come on,
of,
bro. Wait, he's got a tan suit. It's over. He can't do it. Don't you remember the tan suit Obama thing?
I do, yeah.
Here to cover this event. This is a very respectful gathering, and the purpose is very simple. As I have had the opportunity to campaign for over a year and a half across this district, the best part
I think this
has
is
been
just
meeting
him.
constituents.
Okay.
Meaning-
I'm
Yeah,
out.
You could,
I'm out.
Yeah. This is
back
just
with-
him going after his opponent when he was running. If you really
I get
want
it.
to
Too boring. He's
hear him
boring.
talk about
We gotta
Medicare for
jazz
all or
him up.
something.
We got to get this guy on Adderall.
Listen,
We got to get him on those
he's a good
pills
guy.
that Trump's on.
So
Get him on those fucking energy pills where you really have like a lot of vigor, a lot of pep in your step.
You think Trump's on pills?
100%.
You think he's on Adderall?
I think he's on something like it.
I
There's
mean,
been
it
a
would
lot of
make sense.
reporting on it.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't see it,
Yeah.
no.
Well, apparently, there is a reporter that literally named the pharmacy where the Duane Reade pharmacy where Trump had his prescription
No
filled,
shit.
where he used to be on one form of amphetamine. There was a diet pill. He's supposed to be on for
You know
6
what?
months. He was on for years. It completely makes sense. If
It
you think
does.
about the amount of time that guy spent on the campaign trail,
70-some-odd-year-old guy out there giving speeches endlessly.
fucking energy
Yeah.
is incredible.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. Everybody that I know that did Adderall, like I have a good friend.
I've done it before. Yeah.
I haven't, but I have a good friend who was on it for a long time.
It's like Coke.
And he got off it. He gained 50 pounds. He feels like it's hard for him. Like he said doctors were just handing him this stuff and that stuff. And that one doctor gave him 3 different amphetamines and told him, find the one that you like the best.
That's a heart attack waiting to happen
He
if
was
you take
just
them all at once.
jacked up on these things all the time. And last time I saw him was like 4 years ago when he was jacked up on them. And I'm like, dude, what's going on? And he's like, I'm on I'm on Adderall. I'm like, I go, you're kind of like out of it. He's like, yeah, I just...
You know,
So he's back to normal, but he's like, I eat anything and I gain weight now. His whole system's all screwed up.
what is it about some people who can't have a little bit of something and experience the upsides of it without getting totally hooked by it? Because that's something, I feel like that's something that I can do. Like I could try something and then I can experience the upsides of it and not, you know what I mean?
It's a productivity thing.
So for example, I brought you, you said you already have a bunch of, but Kratom, I wanted you to try Kratom. Kratom's something that I have, and I always feel like it's like almost like caffeine to me. I feel like it allows me to control my consciousness better. So if I want to make a decision to do something, I feel like if I have Kratom in me, I can focus on it more. I could be more creative, and it's just upsides of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is that how you feel when you smoke weed?
Yeah. Well, weed is like a bunch of different things. Is one of the things that I like about weed that a lot of people are terrified. One of the things that people don't like about weed is the intense introspective.
I get paranoid.
Yeah, that's what it is. But that I think is where you get growth.
Really?
Yeah, man. I think that fear.
So do
that,
I have like demons in my past that when I smoke it, I'm like looking at that and I
Maybe
want to
not.
run away?
I don't want to psychoanalyze, but I feel like, from my own personal view, if I feel bad about something, if I smoke pot and then all of a sudden I remember something I did like 2 years ago, I'm like, why did I do that? Like, what the fuck was that about? I think that's an opportunity for psychic growth. It gives me an opportunity to examine my own thoughts and try to figure out what I mean. Like who you are at any given time is a bunch of different factors, right? It's what's going on in your career, what's going on in your personal life, where's your health at, how stressed out, how many of these factors are outside of your control, what's the state of your success in life and all these various things, and then all those things together. And that's who you are at any given time, and it fluctuates, it moves, it goes back and forth. And if you catch yourself at a good time and you smoke pot, you feel great. And if you catch yourself at a point where maybe you're examining these things, like sometimes you'll think about these various factors and you get very uncomfortable. And when you were in a state just an hour ago where you were super comfortable about your life, now all of a sudden you don't feel good. Like, what is that? Well, it's probably there's some sort of subconscious thoughts and ideas that you've ignored. And I think ignoring those things is probably unhealthy. And even though that feeling of paranoia or whatever you want to call it, I call it ruthless introspective thinking.
Right.
That feeling is probably, it's healthy because it's making you examine things that you're probably pushing to the dark regions of your consciousness. They make you uncomfortable, so you push them aside. And I think they're better off explored and dealt with.
So I've always felt like substances that either up my mood and make me feel like I want to be very proactive and creative and busy and talkative, fine with taking something like that. Fine with taking the opposite, something that relaxes me and makes me feel just at ease and calm. But so with my limited experience with weed, because I've only smoked weed, honestly, maybe 8 to 12 times in my life.
You want to smoke some right now?
No, I will fucking shit myself and realize that there's
Jamie lit up. Jamie's like,
there's
let's
millions
do it.
of people watching us right now, and I'll realize that. And I'll be like,
oh, yeah. That happens sometimes too.
But anyway, so I've always had an issue with psychoactive substances so I've never tried, and all the drugs you talk about on a regular basis, like psilocybin and stuff like that, I've always been scared of them. And I always feel like the drugs that will make me see things that aren't there, hallucinogenics, I'm just scared of them because I feel like I'll take that trip and not come back. You know what I mean? I know that this is why I'm bringing it up to you because I know you disagree with that, and I'm curious what you think about why I'm scared of those. Because with my experience with weed, most of the times I smoked it, it really was like a paranoid type.
First of all, you probably smoked too much. I always advise
I'm sure I did.
I always advise people when the first time they smoke pot, just take one little hit.
Yes.
Just a little hit and just experience the good parts, which is like a good, weird, kind of funny feeling. And then there's also, I feel like it's a turbocharger for your imagination. It's one of my favorite things for writing.
100% that happened. But I feel like I already have a hyperactive mind, and then when the path my mind will go down when I smoke weed, suddenly I'm thinking about, I don't know, fucking naked Vikings and
that's good though.
It's like, well, how the fuck am I thinking about all this shit?
Yeah.
But it's like a shock to the system. And did you, the first few times I smoked weed, I didn't get high. Did that happen with you or no?
No.
No, you got high immediately?
No, I got really high.
So
yeah.
I have a pretty funny story about that. The first few times I smoked it, I thought I was cool. I was in high school. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a cool kid and smoke weed. So I smoked it and didn't have any effect. And then by the third or fourth time, somebody had asked me before I had class, you want to smoke weed? I was like, yeah, sure, fuck it, let's do it. It didn't affect me the other few times. Why not?
Right.
Went and smoked it. I opened the door to come back in school, and I start walking down the hallway. I was like, this feels weird. And then I'm sitting in class, convinced my eyes are probably bloodshot red. In my mind, everybody in the room knows I'm high, and they're like thinking like, this asshole's high. Of course. I'm scared to death of the teacher. So anyway, but there was a few times where I smoked weed and I had a positive experience, but it was like all it was just giggling nonstop with my friends to the point where we'd laugh, and then I remember one of us literally asking, hey, why the fuck are we laughing? And somebody said, I don't know, and then we kept laughing.
Well, listen, it's a good thing to laugh. I don't think it's a bad thing, but one of the reasons why you don't remember what you were laughing at, there's a real issue with short-term memory in marijuana. You know, it's one of the reasons why I prefer marijuana with nootropics. I like the combination of the two. I think they balance each other out because the nootropics accentuate your memory, and then on top of that, the marijuana sort of fucks with your memory a little bit. There's real issues. I mean, marijuana it's not 100% innocuous in terms of your like psychic stability.
Well, you said when you took off the month, you had your dreams were powerful.
Oh yeah, they were way different. They were very, very intense. Like within the first week, it started getting really crazy.
Yeah.
Like intense, like weird lucid dreams, like just very, very bizarre and detailed and bright and vivid.
And so you think that it's one of those things where that's not good? So are you trying to avoid smoke weed a little less so that you don't have the effects on sleep, or do you like?
I don't think it's bad for your sleep. And what I've read is that God, I wish I could remember. See if you could pull that up. Like what are the marijuana and there's some positive benefits to it. It just bypasses that
REM sleep, deep REM sleep or something
quicker, and you get to the deeper stages of sleep. Because REM sleep, a lot of people think is like the deepest level of sleep.
It's not. Yeah.
No, there's a deeper level of sleep. And the idea is that marijuana somehow or another gets you to that deeper level quicker. There's a lot of people that I know that smoke pot before they go to bed, and it's very,
and it helps
very
them sleep.
helpful.
Yeah,
very helpful
well, that's
for them.
One of the interesting things about kratom, and why I think it's kind of similar to weed and how people use it, even though the feeling is different when they take it, is that many people take it because they were addicted to opioids,
right?
And it helps them get off the pills. And on kratom, if you have too much of it, you just throw it up. If you have too many opioids, you can die from an overdose. And this is one of the reasons why the FDA is cracking down on it, because they're fucking bought by big pharma, and they don't want anything that's going to compete with their fucking profits.
Yeah, there's no reason to ban it. There's no deaths. There's no addictive properties. It's not something that's fucking people up. It's
exactly.
Just not.
So people take it for because they had an addiction to pills. People take it for PTSD. They take it for depression. They take it for anxiety. They take it for recreational reasons. They take it to wake up in a smaller dose. They take it to sleep in a bigger dose. It's a substance like that.
That's a weird substance in terms of like I don't know any other substance where you take a low dose and it's a stimulant. You
Opioids.
Take
Opioids,
the
same thing.
way?
If you take a lower dose of opioids, it's more of an upper. You take a bigger dose of opioids, it's more of a downer.
What's the rationalization for categorizing it as an opioid?
Because it affects the same receptors in the brain.
But it doesn't have the same response.
Well, that's why it's a very misleading thing that the FDA did, is because what they're trying to do is find a backdoor way to be like, sorry, you guys can't have it because it's an opioid and it's dangerous and it's this and it's that. But they're glossing over the most important point, which is the one that we were talking about, which is if you take too much kratom, you just throw up. That's not the case with opioids. This is why people overdose all the fucking time.
Yeah.
And actually the bigger problem is that when people get addicted to opioids, and then because of the crackdown now, they're not prescribing as many opioids, then those same people go to the black market and they get fucking heroin. And then when they get heroin on the black market, oftentimes it's laced with fentanyl, which is a fucking elephant tranquilizer, which then kills them. So
They killed Tom Petty and Prince this year.
And Philip Seymour Hoffman. They were speculating that the fentanyl was in his heroin, which is why he
had
died.
heroin. That was heroin, right? He didn't have pills.
Oh no, it wasn't pills. He was doing heroin.
But the stuff that they found in Prince's system, like, he apparently didn't even have a prescription for fentanyl.
Oh, so you're saying somehow
or another he got it. I don't know.
Okay.
You know, I mean, he probably wanted something stronger. He apparently had fucked his hips up. Prince had done all that crazy dancing on stage and all those years. You know, my friend Maynard from Tool, he had to get a hip replacement from stomping on stage. You ever see like how Maynard sings?
Yeah.
When he would sing, he would just be fucking stomping on stage. He blew his hip out.
That's crazy.
Now he's got an artificial hip. They cut the top of his...
How old is he?
50, 51.
Shit.
Yeah.
The human body's so fucking fragile.
It is. Super fragile.
And I'm going to have to... Everybody's going to be like, shut the fuck up, Kyle. You can't stop talking about Tiger Woods, because I love golf and I love Tiger Woods. But Tiger Woods is a great example of... The guy had fucking 4 back surgeries.
Yeah.
4 back surgeries.
Dude, I know a lot of people that have had back surgery. My good friend Eddie Bravo has a artificial disc in his back.
Shit. And does he still do jiu-jitsu and roll and stuff?
He doesn't right now because he blew his ACL out. He has to have ACL reconstructive surgery. I mean, look, jiu-jitsu is rough on the body. I've had 2 knee reconstructions, one from Taekwondo, one from jiu-jitsu, but then I had a 3rd operation from jiu-jitsu as well. So 2 knee surgeries from jiu-jitsu. And I had some significant back problems too. Everybody gets them. Just there's no way around it if you're training hard. Your body just can only take so much.
And you were talking about the stem cells that you got. I saw the podcast with Mel Gibson with the stem cells.
That was fascinating. I haven't gone to Panama yet to do that. I've only done them in America, which apparently you can't get the same sort of potency. But there's some new research that shows that there's some other stuff they're working on now that is it sounds gross, but umbilical blood. They're using blood from umbilicals of people that are like just giving birth, and they're having radical healing response with this stuff.
Well, there was a study that came out a few years ago that said when you took the blood of young mice
Right. It's
and put them
different
into
thing,
old
though.
mice, different thing,
It's
but same
intravenous.
concept.
Yeah, that's something that erroneously was attributed to Peter Thiel. That Peter Thiel was doing that. Apparently, he said he wasn't. But there's a startup in Silicon Valley that does that offers, and guys are going there. And so, like, a guy would go there, and some 25-year-old kid who does CrossFit every day would give up a couple of pints of blood, and they'd shoot it into your system, and then you'd go out there and fuck the shit out of your wife.
It can't be that simple, right? Like, that's almost too simple a concept. Like, just take the blood from the young people, put it into the old people, and everybody's a fucking Olympic athlete.
Maybe yes and maybe no.
That's kind of like a vampire too, right? Isn't that like the whole theory?
A little bit. Yeah, that's the Elizabeth Bathory thing, right? Remember the story of Elizabeth Bathory?
No.
And it's interesting. Somebody contacted me on Twitter and told me that this story might be a distortion, even though it's it's sort of in the historical record. They might have actually been trying to steal her land, so they might have fabricated some of these charges. But one of the ancient stories of Elizabeth Bathory was that she was this incredibly evil woman that as she got older, she would torture and kill young peasant women and like bathe in their blood because she wanted to regain her youth, and she was jealous of these.
God.
Yeah. I don't know if it's real though. And this person who said that it was a hoax, it made me go, oh, okay, I could see that happening too. You know, where someone wanted to steal from her, so they concocted some charges. Or it could be either or it could be both. You know, who the fuck knows?
Well, with the stem cell thing, I feel like it should be here already if the evidence is as solid as the doctor was saying.
Yes and no. The evidence is very solid that there's some regenerative properties of stem cells. The problem is we don't have enough evidence of what the potential downsides could be and whether or not there's a very specific protocol that ensures safety. Now, Dr. Neil Reardon is on top of all that stuff, and his books, we used to have them sitting around here, but I think we put them in our little library. His books detail all of the various studies that have shown efficacy and all the different benefits that they have. And for a lot of people, like Mel Gibson's dad, who was 92 when he went in there, now he's almost 100.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And Mel Gibson's dad was fucked. I mean, he couldn't walk. He was all jacked up, and it straightened him right out.
So not to get all conspiratorial, but it maybe I have no idea, but maybe the reason why it's not already here is because there's some pre-existing treatment for stuff like that they don't want to scrap. You know what I mean?
I mean, it's always possible. I think more likely they're skeptical. And then the FDA also wanted to categorize some stem cell preparations as a drug because you have to do something to the stem cells. And then in the process of cultivating them, there's some sort of a method that they do that they believe categorizes it as a drug. I'm obviously a moron, so I'm not the right person to talk to about this.
Me too.
Yeah, but Dr. Neil Reardon is lobbying to get it passed in Texas. Goddamn great state of Texas, hallelujah. If anybody can do it, Texas can do it. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't give a fuck. It's barely America. That's Texas.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
I would love it if they did that. If they did it where you could go to Texas and get those treatments. Everybody that I know that's gone over there and gotten the treatments has had some radical positive response.
Well,
I know quite a few people that have gone there.
I know countless stories of people. So I know somebody who got the LASIK eye surgery, and they flew to the UK to get their version of it because their version of it is better, is superior, and we have the older one here, and they're still waiting on the approval for the new way of doing it.
Well, why would they hold back approval on that, though? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. And this is what I'm saying. I feel like in many instances, not in every instance, but in many instances, you have the pre-existing treatments that are already in place, and pharmaceutical companies make a lot of money from having those treatments already in place. So if you try to upend the apple cart, overturn the apple cart, I mean, this gets back to the whole kratom point. There's a reason why. If this is something that's basically a cure for addiction to opioids, why the fuck are we not pushing it like crazy?
Yeah.
And the reason is they don't want to stop making money off the fucking opioids.
I think that is a much more likely conspiracy because there's just an ungodly amount of money in opioids.
Yes, look at the pill mills in fucking West Virginia, millions of pills in a town that doesn't have that many people.
Did you ever see the documentary, The OxyContin Express?
I did not know. Oh, actually, I may have. The one where they go to Broward County. Yeah, well, I think I saw that.
They've changed the laws since then because people were going down. I mean, was one of the most ridiculous things they've ever had in this country. They had a setup where they had these pain management centers. So it's one box, right? One building. And in this building, there's 2 different doors. One door is the doctor. You go to the doctor, you go, hey, man, my fucking back hurts. And the doctor says, okay, I'll write you a prescription. Go next door to the pharmacy. The pharmacy only has OxyContin.
Yeah.
It's like if you only have a hammer.
Yeah.
Everything looks like a nail.
Well, looks like you need a hammer here.
How am I going to chop this tree down? I guess I'm going to fucking use a hammer. Like, it's fucking crazy that this was going on for so long. And then this is where it got really weird. It wasn't just they had these pain management centers. They also didn't have a state database. So if you went to Dr. Jamie over there and got a prescription for OxyContin, and then you left Dr. Jamie's office with a fat bag of pills, you could go to Dr. Joe's office, and I'd give you another prescription.
Yeah.
And these pain management centers were all over the place in Florida.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So Florida was literally, because, there's no other way that I could imagine that this would be done conscientiously. I think this was all corruption. I think the only reason why they would have no database, we're not in the 1500s, man.
Sure.
You guys could keep records of who's fucking on this shit and who's not. There's a way, they had records back before the internet.
Yeah.
There's no excuse for this. This is, I think, intentional corruption.
And what's crazy is now the pendulum is swinging almost too far in the other direction.
Ohio Attorney General suing opioid distributors.
See, now this is a good example of what I think is the pendulum swinging too far in the other direction, because I have pain patients who contact me all the time, and they talk about how since there's new federal regulations over the pills, what's happening is many doctors are afraid to prescribe them at all, even when it's a legitimate pain issue. And so people contact me and they go, I don't know what to do because I need my pills because I have severe pain problem and I've had it for an extended period of time and nobody wants to give me the pills anymore. And they feel like they're forced to go on the black market now.
Right. And now that they're eliminating kratom, it's even more fucked up.
Exactly. So
what is the status of kratom currently?
Still legal.
Still legal.
Still legal, but it's a monitored substance by the FDA.
What does that mean?
It basically means if they want to, they seize fucking shipments of it when it comes into the U.S.
If they want to.
If they want to,
and
exactly.
then you can't get that shipment back.
No, you can't get it back.
Fuck off.
Exactly.
Fuck off. We're going to take your beneficial plants.
But it's still, thankfully, there's still leeway. The last time the FDA really tried to crack down on it and make it a Schedule I drug, the fucking bowels of hell opened up on their face because they opened up a comments section, comments period, and like 99.9% of the comments were like, fuck you, this saved my life, you guys are fucking criminals, how dare you do this? And then they had to back off because the comments were just so overwhelming. Yeah. So now they're trying to slowly do it again, and what's happening is they just referenced, there are 44 cases of somebody who overdosed from kratom.
Multi-state outbreak of salmonella.
Right, so this
infections related to kratom.
Exactly. So there were a few cases of salmonella-tainted kratom, and so the idea, there's another way they try to go, we gotta get rid of it because there's some salmonella cases.
At this time, the CDC recommends that people not consume kratom in any form because it could be contaminated with salmonella. We instead suggest fentanyl, which kills rhinos. We could kill a fucking whale with a Altoid-sized piece of fentanyl. They literally could kill a whale.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, like that whale would be fucked.
Yeah.
An Altoid.
So they said there are 44 deaths linked to kratom.
28 cases. A few people got diarrhea.
But
11 hospitals. That's it. 11 hospitalizations.
Well, the story gets crazier because there were 44 cases that they cited and said, well, look, man, 44 cases of people dying when they took kratom. Well, guess what? No. Reporters decided, let's look into this. Let's dig deeper and see what happened. First of all, one of the cases was a suicide that they counted as a death that they're attributing to kratom.
That's hilarious.
Another was a homicide.
That's hilarious.
And then
so
other
now we're
ones
down to 42.
There were, and then most of them, people had like 5 or 6 different drugs in their system. And they're saying, it's kratom. So
that's one of the things they did with marijuana and car accidents. They were saying, all these different car accidents, people have marijuana in their system. Yeah, but they were also drunk.
Exactly.
Yeah, people are partying, man.
Right.
They're out of their fucking head and they crash into trees. That's not good.
How do you feel now that California has legalized it? Is it because you had the medical one before, and now is it more of a pain in the ass to get weed because it's legalized? No,
it's very easy to get weed in California. It's very easy. It's not as easy as in Colorado. Colorado's got it down. Colorado's got it nailed, and they are booming.
Swimming in money. Yeah.
Booming. the point where they have to give people money
That's
back.
right. That's right. They gave a check to everybody in the state, and they take. I love how they take a lot of the money and they divert some of it to education, some of it to substance treatment. So they're doing the most responsible thing for it. And like you said, the tax on it, everybody's like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's a high tax rate. I think they have a 39% tax rate on recreational, and I think it's like 11 on medicinal. But here's the thing. It's not exorbitantly expensive. It's a plant that grows easy. It's not hard to grow. It's not like some very difficult grape that needs a perfect climate and you need to, it's not. Marijuana is not hard to grow. So there's not a lot of arguments against it for responsible adults.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, are we going to regulate responsible adult use of substances? Because if we do, we'd be hypocritical if we didn't eliminate alcohol.
Exactly
It's
right.
one of the worst ones.
If you look at it objectively,
Yeah.
you would have to say, listen, this substance, which is legal and has been legal for a very long time, is
Yeah.
actually more dangerous than many of these ones that are illegal. And we learned from alcohol prohibition how terrible an idea it is to just ban the substance.
Yeah.
Because what happened during prohibition? The mafia got incredibly powerful because they're the ones selling the alcohol, they're the ones making the money, and then when you have a dispute and your product is on the black market, you know how you solve that dispute? With fucking guns in the street.
Yeah.
You know how you solve the dispute if it's legal? You go to court wearing suits and ties, and you
Yeah.
figure it out like adults.
Well, this is another thing that Trump should have recognized when he was...
Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, he's a perfect example. That guy's a goddamn monster.
He's an
crazy.
idiot. He's the old school mentality of like, I was raised and it's wrong if you put
Yeah.
substances in your body.
Well, he literally said, good people don't use marijuana. Well, that's crazy, bro.
Yeah,
He's saying
casting
that-
a moral judgment on you for that.
I think there's something like 37% of the country is regular marijuana users. So you're saying 37% of the country is bad people?
Yeah,
Come
exactly.
on, dude.
And there's another example, by the way, of 60% of people now want to legalize marijuana across the country.
Yeah.
So this is another issue where if the Democrats decided, let's not be fucking corrupt idiots and let's actually fight for something, do you have any idea how big of a blue tsunami there would be in the next election
Yeah.
if every Democrat came out there and said, one of the things we're for is legalizing marijuana. We're going to fight for that and we're not going to take no for an answer.
And we're going to make a lot of money that can go to the schools, that can go to the infrastructure, that
Exactly.
can go to
And the job creation.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
these are arguments that also appeal to the right. If you tell people on the right, hey, you guys say you love small government. You know what's really big government? When they knock down your fucking door and drag you out in handcuffs because you decided to tweak your consciousness slightly.
Yeah.
That's the biggest government imaginable.
Yeah, they kick your door down, shoot your dog because you've got a fucking bowl sitting in your coffee table. There's so many examples of that too. If Trump really wanted to stop all this illegal Mexican cartel
legalize
shit,
it. Legalize it, tax it, regulate
Yeah.
it. Done.
You
and
just
thousands of
squash
jobs
the
created.
cartels. Yeah,
Exactly.
There's no reason for them to be here.
Yeah. And this is one of the things that's so frustrating to me doing what I do. And one of the reasons why I think shows like ours have blown up is because we're willing to say the most obvious things that everybody's thinking, but the system is dragging like fucking 50 years behind what we're talking about.
Well, you could never do the show that you do or this kind of show if you had like real serious advertisers and a real
100%.
serious network and producers and executives. If you had a bunch of executives that were above you and, you know, fill in the blank, CNBC or whatever, and their job depended upon you not saying something fucked up that was going to get the advertisers to crack down on their program, and you wouldn't be able to do it. You wouldn't have the
100%.
freedom.
In fact, Cenk Uygur was on MSNBC. The reason he ended up leaving MSNBC, he was too hard on the Democrats. So his higher-ups were like, hey, listen, man, I just heard from our friends in Washington that you need to reel it in a little bit.
Sure.
And he's like, wait, I don't understand. So the whole idea of MSNBC is
Yeah.
be partisan, be in favor of the Democrats, and support the Democratic establishment. The whole idea of Fox News is be partisan, support the Republicans, support the establishment. If somebody comes along and they go, you know what, your whole fucking game is bullshit.
Yeah.
Both the parties are corrupt. Nobody's fighting for the people. You're ignoring the fact that only 14% of the American people even support Congress. You're ignoring the fact that 60% of people want to legalize marijuana. If you go and talk about real issues, that's when they step up and they go, listen, we can't have you because, you know, hey, you curse too much or this isn't
Right.
palatable. And it's always people above you who feel like they should be able to control your content, but they don't understand the reason why the content is popular in the first place is because you're not fucking being controlled.
Exactly. They're operating in this archaic format too. The other problem is they interrupt their show every 15 minutes for commercials, and it's just they break the flow of it, and then they got fucking commercials for antidepressants and diarrhea pills and whatever the fuck else they're selling, and it's just nobody wants that. This is it's an archaic version of entertainment, and it made sense back when that was the only way to get your entertainment. When the only way to get your entertainment was the big three, NBC, ABC, CBS. Then Fox comes along and tosses the apple cart up. And then you got cable. Oh my goodness. Now things are crazy. Well, cable news has really opened it up. And now you got wild shit like Fox News and all this. And Megyn Kelly doesn't have any clothes on. She's telling you about fucking history. All that stuff was really an interesting thing. Then the internet comes along. All bets are off.
100%.
And they're fucked because a guy like you, I mean, who's involved in your operation? How many people?
3, 4.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. Hi,
Yeah.
Lilith. Lilith does a lot of my social
Lilith.
media stuff. She's awesome.
What's up, Lilith?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's nuts. I mean, how many fucking people would be involved in the Ryan Seacrest show?
Forget it. And,
Hundreds, right?
and the fact that when
I don't know
you
why
keep
I said
something...
Ryan Seacrest.
Yeah, he's so irrelevant. When you keep something small and close to the chest, I feel like that's when you can mold it and make it your own. When
Yeah.
it becomes a giant, big operation and 43 hands are in it.
Right.
Well, then all of a sudden it feels like it's stale and detached
Yes.
and not connected to
Yeah.
anything real that people can relate to.
No, I've been involved in that kind of stuff before. I know what happens. Just there's too many cooks in the kitchen. Everything gets fucked up, and everybody's also trying to justify their position, which is almost unnecessary. I mean, there's so many positions when you work on a television set and you see how many people are just standing around. You go, oh, what the fuck is? Why are there so many jobs? Like, why are there so many people working? Well, a lot of it is like they've kind of created these jobs to justify their position, and then when there's meetings, those people all have like an idea that they want to change. They want
Yeah.
to change this or tweak that, and so they can say that was my idea, and that justifies their role. Well, it was my idea to tell Kyle that he's got to stop doing this and start doing that, and we got Kyle to wear a suit, and he pushed back, but I was right. I was right. You know, like there's all that kind of shit that happens on these goddamn TV sets, and it ruins the individual idea, like a person's individual point of view. Like there's no way you're going to get a real, unique, individual point of view if you have so many people tweaking and adjusting and restricting and demanding that a person behave a certain way or dress a certain way or stay to a certain topic or, you know, keep on. You know, you have to keep within these very clearly defined parameters.
Where was it worst for you? Which show? Was it The Man Show? When you did The Man Show
That was
reboot?
a disaster. Yeah, that was a disaster for a bunch of reasons. But one of the reasons why that was a disaster was because Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake had decided to pull Janet's boobie out on TV.
Oh, and so they cracked down, started being
and
very
everything.
PC.
They were terrified of everything. But that's also, you have a bunch of people, again, that aren't comedians. They don't know what's funny, and they're trying to impose their idea of what's funny and what's not. You have a lot of that on television now. You have a lot of these people that aren't necessarily comedians, but they might be like super progressive, social justice warrior types, and now they're trying to push that kind of comedy as being what everybody likes. And then that shit gets to, you know, Jamie's hometown, Columbus, Ohio, and these people are like, what the fuck are you feeding me?
And then meanwhile, like we were talking about for the podcast, a guy like Joey Diaz comes around, and everybody's like, that's it. That's what we want.
Exactly. Well, you know
the
what,
realest guy in the world.
He's a perfect example, too, because for the longest time, I was trying to tell people, for the longest time, like I had agents, former agents of mine, that would tell me, you've got to stop working with that guy.
That's literally the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life.
He's not funny.
Because it's so easy to see he's like a diamond in the rough in how unique he is and how just straightforward he is.
Yeah, he's a genius. He's a comedy genius. I think he's the funniest, in terms of like bursts of, he might not be the very best joke writer of all time, but in terms of being the funniest, I think he's the funniest person that's ever lived. I've seen everybody. I've seen almost everybody either live or on video. I don't think anybody's ever been funnier than Joey. I've seen Joey some nights at the Ice House or some nights at the Comedy Store hit levels of ridiculousness that I don't think I've seen anybody. And his whole thing, I mean, he's a goddamn human cartoon. His voice, his cartoon,
hey,
the way
dog,
he looks,
listen, dog, I gotta
the
tell
shit
you
he says, the way he moves. He's just, and forever, they were telling me that guy's not funny, this is not good, this guy can't work, and he wasn't getting work other than like character work in movies. But then the internet came along, and then people got to know him on podcasts, and that's what really made Joey.
And you knew that everybody who was telling you that was working backwards from their conclusion. That they had this idea in their mind of what somebody who's popular is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he didn't fit that mold because
Right.
he's too rough around the edges and he curses too much and he talks about eating ass and all that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
And then you knew, no, I know innately, I look at this guy and he touches something in me, so I know this is going to connect with other people.
Well, I'm out there in the clubs, and I'm watching Joey go on stage and crush.
Right.
So them telling me he's not funny, I'm like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, you're just wrong. I've seen it.
Not only that, I'm a fan of comedy. I'm not just a fan of things that are gross. I'm a fan. In fact, if someone's gross and it's not well done, it's appalling to me. It's
Right.
like, ugh. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, I know when people are just being gross for the sake of trying to get a reaction. It's annoying.
Yeah,
It's
sure.
like it's bad on your brain, especially when you hear it more than once. It's like it's grating. Joey's not doing that. He's being himself, and I was watching him kill over and over and over again, and having these people tell me that it's not good. And then podcast came along, 7-8 years ago.
So in his
people got
element.
to know him, and then now when we have him on, it's like always one of our highest
Million
rated
views
shows.
in a minute.
Always.
So, I was telling you before the podcast too, and I'll tell Joey if he's watching. Joey, you don't need guests on your podcast. I really like it when it's just Joey and Lee and they just talk.
I like that too, but I like Joey with guests too. I just like Joey. I'm going to direct and produce Joey's stand-up special.
Oh, that's great.
We couldn't get anybody to do it. It's just like they still don't get it. Like there's a lot of people that still don't get it, and I'm hoping they get it when we put something together. But we're going to film something at the Ice House.
Okay.
And I'm going to put it all together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to direct it and produce it and the whole thing, and
Yeah.
just have someone edit it and just put it together and just make the ultimate Joey Diaz comedy special so people could know. And we're going to do a shitload of shows too, because that's the other thing. Like when a comic has to do one show, ready? Here, Kyle, this is your one moment to be funny, and it's going to be seen forever. It's like you smoking pot and realizing millions of people are talking.
Woo! Yeah, exactly.
That's sort of what it's like for a comic to do a special. So you do one, you get it in the can, you feel loose, then you get that second one, you're like, oh, we got it. And then you do
Sure.
the third one, you're like, now we really got it. And you do the fourth one. That fourth one is generally like a real comedy show.
Sure.
Like where there's no concern, no worries, no issues.
Well, the evolution of stuff is interesting because it's almost impossible to start something and just get it. Like it requires
Yeah.
a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of cultivation, a lot of attention, and it's that book. I forget who wrote it, but the idea of you have to do something for 10,000 hours or whatever the fuck it is.
Is that Gladwell? No. Is
That might be.
Malcolm
That
Gladwell?
might be Malcolm Gladwell. But that's true. And you know what? What I say is, even if, let's say, you don't get there with whatever you're trying to do, you're definitely going to be better after those 10,000 hours. And also, you might learn a lot about yourself and a lot about what you're capable of,
Yeah.
and a lot about dedication and discipline if you just stick with something. And I've always said, people like to shit on one-dimensional people and act like, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be well-rounded and this and that. But, again, to bring up Tiger Woods, how the fuck do you think he got good at golf? You know how he got good at golf? By only fucking playing golf.
Yeah.
And he was able to find something that he got so fucking good at and create meaning in his life and also use that to develop different parts of your personality. And I'm in favor of people doing whatever they think suits their creative pursuits. Don't feel bad if you're somebody who's all I do is this one fucking thing.
Right.
Okay, but you can get really fucking good at it. And even if it's some shit like playing video games, okay, go be the fucking best video game player in the world.
Right.
Might as well if that's what you're really good at and you can do the time and put in the work.
Especially if you enjoy that. And there's something about getting... Did you ever see Jiro Dreams of Sushi?
No.
Really interesting documentary. One of the weirdest things about it is just there's a term that the Japanese use for someone who does something over and over and over again, even a simple task, and becomes a master at it. Do you remember what that term was, Jamie? Remember that? But this is one guy in the film. At first I was very skeptical. Like, I'm not watching a fucking movie about a dude who makes sushi, cuts
Yeah.
the fish, he puts it on the rice.
But then
who
when
gives
you
a
see
fuck?
what really goes into it.
It's a shokunin, I think.
How do you say it?
Shokunin.
Shokunin, yeah.
Shokunin.
And that is what is the definition of that? What is it? What do they call it? What is the actual?
Tradesman.
Uh,
Well, that's a...
No, it was like someone who practices something methodically meticulously forever until they get it. And this guy was just making an egg dish. This like really simple, fluffy egg dish. I mean, and you know how you get those. You know how you get sushi sometimes and it has that little piece of egg on it, like this.
I don't eat sushi. Tastes like pussy.
You don't eat sushi.
Yeah, not a fan.
You don't eat pussy either. Well, shut this fucking camera off. This guy's an asshole.
The pussy one I'll deal with. The sushi I'm not dealing with.
Anyway, this guy was like almost in tears because he finally reached this state where the guy was like,
perfect.
"Yeah, this is the way to make the egg dish." The mastery of one's profession. Shokunin.
Oh, shokunin.
A lot of different things I'm seeing for definitions.
Oh, okay. Shokunin, mastery of one's profession. And that this is this thing that this guy had been studying the art of making sushi, like the properly aging of the fish, which I didn't even know. I thought the fish was fresh. I thought that was the move.
Yeah, really.
It's not.
If it's aging,
no, they want to. They age it in refrigerators for long periods of time.
That I would have never guessed that they did that with fish.
They do that obviously with meat. Everybody knows about dry aged meat. You're literally letting the bacteria break down the meat over long periods of time.
But what's interesting is you would never guess that there are so many different angles to doing something as simple as making that dish.
Right.
But there's so much that goes into it, and if you care enough to look at all the nuances of it and to really get into the specifics of it, then you can create something that has meaning to you and really can develop you as a person.
Yeah, yeah. There's something in that where you're exploring your own potential for getting good at things.
Right.
That's what you're doing. You're exploring like what's keeping this guy from making this perfect egg dish, and how does he nail it? Is it a timing issue? Is he getting the ingredients correct? I don't know what ingredients are in this egg dish, but I don't know why I'm even using that. But for anything, there's some exploration of these ideas. What is this? Kaizen.
Yeah,
that's the word you were thinking of?
Oh, that's the word. Continuous improvement, a long-term approach to work that systematically seeks to achieve small incremental changes in processes in order to improve efficiency and quality. Right. Kaizen. But I think it was shokunin.
Yeah, it says the shokunin definition said like the definition of tradesman isn't good enough, but there's more deeper meaning when you get into like the Japanese cultural aspect.
Okay. So either one of those, folks.
Both of them together probably.
Yeah.
I actually think that this topic that we're talking about right now, this is one of the main reasons why Jordan Peterson got very popular. Is because Jordan Peterson, he talks a lot about stuff that other people take for granted about self-improvement and like getting your own shit together.
Right.
And so that was like a market that was waiting to be served for so long, where people wanted to have a little bit of direction and structure and framework as to how do I go about doing that.
Yeah.
And then this guy comes along and he's very well-spoken and he can kind of break that down for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, he exemplifies a lot of those traits we were just discussing. Like he was talking about his first book, and one of the things that he said is that it took him 15 years to write the book.
The 12 Rules book?
No, the first book.
Oh, the first book.
First book, which was on the Cold War. And he was talking about how he went over every sentence to see if it can be improved or criticized.
Do you do that with your like the podcast? Do you listen back or no? Because they're long. Sometimes.
Okay. If especially if I fucked up. If I fucked up, I'll listen. Or if I said something I know that could be a bit, said something ridiculous, well, I'll have to go back and
get a nugget out of there.
Mine it. Yeah, I'll do that. Or, you know, if some people say something that's really intense, like the David Goggins podcast, I plan on listening to that one again because it was so inspirational.
Oh, yeah. I turned it on. This guy's talking about how he ran 374,000 miles. And meanwhile, I'm like, great, I'll be on Joe's show next week talking about chronic masturbation.
Well, he's intense. Intense, it's not a good enough word. It's like we need a shokunin word for intensity. Yeah, he's, but also, you could get a lot out of that. There's something about inspiration in that form, like the exemplified form. There's a term that the Koreans use for a Taekwondo instructor. It's a sabomnim, and it means one who leads by example. And there's something about a guy like that really does practice what he preaches and is so motivational just by his own actions. When you hear him talk about it and you know he's actually done it, like you just want to like, why am I sitting down? I gotta go.
Yeah,
like, you just want to.
I think you said that after the podcast, right? You were like, I'm in the gym. Fuck this.
You just want to go do something, man.
Right? Yeah.
There's something about guys like him that are very, very valuable to us, and I think people get real cynical about the idea of inspiration because there's so many ridiculous, like, not to single out girls because there's guys who do it too, but there's some funny shit about girls just stick their butt out on Instagram and they have all these like motivational quotes.
You know, Corin and I were talking about it before. It's amazing how many Kim Kardashian clones exist now. I mean, and even in her own family, I don't know all the names of them, but one of the younger ones, it's like she went to the plastic surgeon and she was like, I want to look like Kim.
Yeah.
And they just give her the same face.
Yeah. Yeah.
What the fuck is up with that?
And the butt thing is the most disgusting thing, where they're taking fat and stuffing it into their ass and they develop this diaper butt. I mean, there's a lot of people out there with diaper butt. I met a girl the other day that had diaper butt. She was at the Comedy Store, and I couldn't look away. I was like, what is happening to her butt? Because I knew it wasn't real. I knew she had, like,
So
she had these spindly legs.
Yeah, the skinny legs and then the...
Well, if a girl has a big, like...
hips and the... Right.
Remember R. Crumb
thick.
comics? Do you remember R. Crumb comics?
No.
Do you know what R. Crumb is? R. Crumb, there was a great documentary called Crumb, and it's about this guy who's this like really eccentric, perverted cartoonist from the 1970s. And he would always draw these women with these enormous legs and enormous butt. But they weren't fat. They were just...
It was voluptuous.
Well, no, it was... It's past voluptuous. Into like... super athlete DNA. Like if you could get that girl and make some male babies with it, you would have a fucking ultimate warrior. Like that. See that woman? Like they're perfect.
Yeah.
How to have fun with a strong girl. And you see R. Crumb. That's actually
like
him.
Ronnie Coleman legs.
Yeah, that's actually him with his boner because he was this really frail, dorky guy. And he's got this image of this woman who just looks like a tank. She has these giant muscle legs and big boobs, but not like ridiculous stripper boobs, but more like just super alpha DNA female boobs.
Yeah.
He was a freaky guy. Like, look at him. He's got sock. I mean, that's who he was. Like, look at the one above that, Jamie. The one to the right. Yeah, right there. Like,
oh my goodness.
This is what he used to draw. He was always drawing these enormous, powerful women.
This guy was definitely into getting dominated by...
yeah. He would just shove his whole head in their pussy or something.
Sure.
Like, look at he had him riding one. I guess he's supposed to be having sex with her.
Yeah, and this guy definitely nutted in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. Oh man, like he's choking them in these cartoons. Like he's always choking them. Like you literally couldn't have an R. Crumb today.
That looks like... It looks kind of like a Woody Allen too.
Oh yeah.
Picture. Yeah.
Well, see if you could find video of him, R. Crumb. The documentary is fascinating because I think he wound up moving to France or something like that. I think he wound up leaving America. But there's actually, if you go to video, you'll find there's video of him. But that was the guy. He's a really fascinating guy. That's not him.
It looks just like
Is
him on
it?
the right.
Not on the right.
Oh, that's not him?
Definitely not on the right.
Okay. Guy on
Maybe
the
it's
left?
him on the left. Is that him? Oh, there it
I
is.
was going to ask you some about where...
Oh yeah. He just looks odd. It was because he's holding up that picture.
Yeah.
Maybe it's also because I'm looking at him now as an older man.
Yeah.
A lot of the video that I'd seen was him.
It bothers me to look at him and think like that guy has a strong sex drive. That's you can
He
see
might
that.
not. He might just save it up for every couple weeks.
And then
you
draw
know,
one of those cartoons and beat off to it.
or find a gal
Yeah.
that's suitable.
Exactly. Pay
Yeah.
somebody to sit on his face.
Strange character though. It doesn't matter, Jamie. It's okay. What's that?
I say it looks. He did Fritz the Cat too. Was that
Yeah,
him?
he
Oh,
did
okay,
Fritz the
cool.
Cat. He did a lot of pretty famous animated or cartoon comic book type things, but they were all like cartoonish like features. Everybody was weird.
Yeah. And you think Kim has now made that's the...
No, but that's
standard
different.
butt.
See, this is like a real like that. Those women's asses that R. Crumb drew. I'm not justifying his stuff, but they were freak DNA specimens.
Sure.
Like those women had giant thighs and giant asses, and that's who they were. Whereas with Kim, she's got those spindly, like her butt is this. It's a surgical creation. Like there's pictures of her that are online that make it look good, but they're all photoshopped. And we found out about that because she got paparazzi'd when she was in Mexico. They caught her on the beach.
I think that was the one that they were showing right there.
No, it's way grosser
worse?
than that. Way grosser. They caught her wandering around the beach, and they took photos of her, like real paparazzi photos. She would have fake paparazzi photos where she would hire paparazzi to take photos of her, and then she would Photoshop them up. And they made it look like everything was in place, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a disaster. This is what it really looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. So
what's that?
Okay. So if the legs match the ass, I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah, but even that ass is a distortion. There's so much going on there because you're not supposed to have that much fat in one place. A girl who has an ass like that has legs to match it.
That's what I'm saying. If the legs match the ass, I'd like it. But the legs, the legs throw it off because little twig legs, and then you got the.
It's just
obnoxiously
it's a bad
large ass.
message. It's like those guys that shoot synthol into their muscles to get fake muscles. It's the same thing. Like that's not a real ass. Like
I know,
just like those synthol muscles are not real muscles.
They're so obviously
So's
fake.
that butt.
Yeah, because of the legs though. But if the legs matched it, I'd be like, that's nice.
Yeah, but it wouldn't match it. It's just not possible.
I've seen some where it matches.
Yeah, but not like that. The whole thing is a disaster. It's just.
Have you ever watched the show?
There's a synthol guy. Look at that poor guy.
Look at his face. He's like, I'm nailing this shit.
Yeah, look at his neck.
I got this shit on lock.
Oh my God, look at this guy.
He looks like he's got tits.
He does. I mean, these guys wind up getting horrible infections too, and sometimes they get gangrene and shit.
They say
Jesus
that there's an
Christ.
actual thing. Oh my God! They say how there's an actual thing called bigorexia. Like there's anorexia and there's bigorexia.
Body dysmorphia. It exists with. I mean, there's people that have body dysmorphia in terms of their facial features. They just can't stop tweaking their nose.
Did you hear about? I read an article about how somebody was like, I know I'm supposed to have a hand here, but it feels so fucking foreign that. And there's been multiple recorded cases of this where they will shove their fucking hand in dry ice so that they can get it amputated, so that afterwards they can say, "Look, I'm free. I finally feel normal." Yeah. It's like you just. And they say that to them, it feels like if I had a fucking third hand just growing out of here, I'd feel like that shit doesn't belong.
Right.
There are some people where they feel like their hand doesn't fucking belong.
Yeah.
And what that shows is like the variation in human psychology is so fucking broad that it's scary because when you really digest that exists, you also can understand how, well, there's monsters out there too who want to fucking massacre people and they dream about that shit and that's how they get their rocks off.
Yeah, the human mind varies so much. There's so many different paths that thoughts can go down, and there's so many different weird pathologies that the mind is capable of. But the idea that you would think that you're supposed to be handicapped and you're not handicapped, and so you want to chop off a foot or something like that. It's really, I mean, it's not common. I shouldn't say it's common, but it's definitely documented.
So let me ask you, what's your take on if somebody's transgender and they want the surgery, and let's say they're either in the military or they're in prison or something like that, is that something that you think should be provided for them or no?
It's a good question. I haven't really thought about it too much. I don't think so. I don't think that's an elective surgery. And people would say, no, it's not elective surgery. Well, you think that other people should pay for that? Boy, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't have it. Okay? So if I was going to say, I know why people are transgender. They're transgender because of body dysmorphia. They're transgender because of gender dysmorphia. They're transgender because of this, because of that, because of abuse, because of, they're easily susceptible to suggestion. I would just be talking out of my ass. I don't really know. I would imagine, though, that there is a broad spectrum of reasons why someone becomes transgender. Some of them being that they literally have the wrong programming in their brain. Some of them being that they could have thought that they were a fucking wood elf. Or that they...
That's the furry shit is the weird shit.
Oh, that's weird. But the furry shit, too, is like, I've talked to some furries because we were kind of
other
goofing
kin.
on
I'm
furries.
sorry. I'm thinking of other kin.
Yeah,
That's the shit I'm thinking of.
The other kin shit is nuts. But there's also people that identify with being a 6-year-old girl. There's been documented cases where people identify as being much younger than they are and they think they should be able to have sex with young kids.
So I feel like, on the transgender one, I feel like for a very long time, I don't think I understood it at all. Mm-hmm. And then I think I finally got it when it was explained to me, like, okay, imagine that you, as a straight, cisgender male.
Don't use that term.
Whatever it is.
Don't give it power. Don't do it.
Okay. As a
don't
white
you do
male,
it, Kyle.
Let's say I walk outside and I'm forced every time I go outside to wear a fucking wig and lipstick and high heels and a fucking dress.
Right.
And I'd be mortified because this is not who the fuck I am and why am I wearing this shit.
Right.
So if you think the first point you made, which is, hey, maybe they were just born with the wrong programming, that they're born biologically male, but they really feel like they're a woman or vice versa. So if that's the case, and it's basically like torture for them to not be the other thing, well, then I kind of understand that. And I'm in favor of them being able to get that surgery. Where they lose me, not transgender people, but where I get lost in this whole conversation is like the gender fluidity one. Like, I was a male, now I'm a woman, and now I'm a man again, and then I'm a woman again, and then I'm a man again.
Well, maybe you're just a fucking idiot. Yeah,
that's
maybe
the thing. Is like, you have
person.
At a certain point, there are things that are real, and there are things that are not real. And I feel like it delegitimizes the ones that are real when you go too goofy and too far and you try to pretend like gender fluidity is a thing.
Well, isn't it what we were talking about earlier when we were talking about left-wing people versus right-wing people, that in the term left-wing people, anybody can join. And you're going to get people like the green-haired people that were disrupting Heather Heying's speech because she was saying there's a difference between men and women. You're going to get those nutty fuckers, and then you're going to get people that are just reasonable people that happen to be progressive.
Sure.
You're going to get that with gender fluidity. You're going to get that with people that are transgender. You're going to get that with people that are, you're just going to get a wide variety. It's very difficult to nail things down and decide.
But for everybody who looks at that and then gets turned off to that and says, you know what, I align more with the right wing because of that culture stuff. Like, I get that feeling over the culture issues. But again, the point that I would make to them is just don't forget that when I talk about politics and when I talk about where I fall on the political spectrum, to me, I break it down on policy and where I fall on the policy issues and what we should implement in order to fix the country. And on those issues, like we were talking about earlier, pretty reliably left-wing, and the polls show that the American people actually lean in that direction.
Right.
So if you focus on those issues, the economic issues, the substantive issues that change people's lives, then, I think that one can look at the culture issues as almost like a diversion, because it really is a gateway to other ideas that I think are terrible. So I think the idea of people on the left calling out that goofiness is a good thing, so that you can redirect them and be like, well, this is what I actually stand for. This is what people who are on the left and want to improve people's lives really want to fight for.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Douglas Murray about this yesterday, and there's just this thing where everyone was forced to say that Caitlyn Jenner is beautiful. Like, you couldn't just accept that she was a woman. You were forced to say that she was beautiful and that she's a hero.
And that's where you get the gateway to the right, because people go, if that's what you're gonna tell me represents the left, then go fuck yourself, because you're just not telling the truth.
Yeah.
You're not. So, and I hate the thing where it's like we have to care more about feelings than what's accurate.
Right.
So I don't know why there needs to be a giant wave on the left of the take no bullshit approach to stuff.
Well, I think when it comes to the transgender thing too, you need to be open to all avenues of this discussion. And one thing that I think we need to be open to, we need to think very carefully about why it is that someone needs surgery to be themselves. Why it is that someone needs exogenous hormones that aren't native to their biology to be themselves. Like someone who wants to take estrogen who's born a male. If you feel that you're a woman, or you feel that you're in the wrong body, does it make sense that nature wants you to get surgery? Does it make sense that nature wants you to take hormones that don't exist in your body? I mean, this is a rational area of contention and discussion. This is something that people should talk about. Like, when you say, if someone is forced to wear lipstick and high heels and makeup and walking down the street, but that's not who you are, wouldn't that frustrate you? Yes, it would. But it doesn't necessarily conversely work, where you are walking down the street without lipstick and high heels and makeup and you're saying, that's what I'm supposed to have. Well, no, because that's not real. Like, lipstick is something you choose to apply. High heels are something you choose to wear. No one's forcing you to not have those things on. So you saying that those things are what you really are. Well, no, you're adding those things to you. What you really are is you. No makeup, naked, wake up in the morning, take off your clothes. That's who the fuck you really are. If you say that you should have the right to wear makeup and the right to wear lip, of course. You should have the right to get your face tattooed like a Maori. You should have the right to do whatever the fuck you want. But that's who you really are, that's somehow your true self, there might be an underlying psychological issue there that's relevant. And to discuss that puts you in this category of being transphobic or insensitive or right-wing. I don't think that's accurate or fair, because I think this is a real weird issue. It's very weird. And I think the only people that truly understand it are the people that are going through it themselves, the people that actually have it. And, we can call upon those people to explain it to us, but you get a broad spectrum of answers from those people as well.
What if, what if it is kind of like depression in a way? So if you give chemical assistance to somebody who's going through depression, everybody goes, right, good, because you want that person to feel like they're happy and normal.
I don't necessarily even think that that's good. I think exhaust all other possibilities first, including exercise and diet. And that's
Sure. But there are examples of people who do have that genuine chemical imbalance.
They do, but why do they have that genuine chemical imbalance? I had Johan Hari on the podcast. Who's
I saw that. Yeah.
And he makes a lot of really good points about what is it that's happening in your life? Is it your situation with your relationship, your career, your life, your health? All these different things need to be taken into consideration instead of just putting some duct tape over it. In the term of these SSRIs and all these different psych medications that they're handing out just as easy as they're handing out OxyContins. They're passing these fucking things around.
Sure, overprescribed for sure.
Radically affect your consciousness.
So let's say everybody has all their ducks in a row,
okay,
and they're exercising, they're eating healthy, they're doing everything by the book, and if you look at it on paper, you're supposed to go, yes, that person should be healthy. And what the fuck's her name? Oh, Cara Santa Maria, who you've had on the podcast before, and she talks about how, listen, I was depressed, and they tried a whole bunch of different antidepressants. They finally got me on one that worked. And then she says, listen, I want people to understand you need to look at this like treatment. Look at it like, hey, I've got a fucking disease and they got to give me antibiotics in order to feel better.
The problem with that is there's real scientists and doctors that disagree with that. And I don't know if she exhausted every other possibility. And Cara, she worships at the throne of science. And she thinks that this is the way to handle it. And she might be right. It also might be possible that if she had rigorous exercise on a daily basis, cleaned up her diet, and did a bunch of other things, that maybe that would be just as effective, if not more. I don't know. I don't know what she's done. But I think that automatically assuming that this blanket statement called depression, which could be, what does that even mean? You're not happy with your station in life. What does that mean? You're not happy with your body. What does that mean? I don't know what it means. I mean, you tell me that you have it, you know what it is when you have it, but how do you know that what you have is the same as what that guy has, or what she has, or what other people have?
Sure.
We don't know. But what we do know is the human body reacts in very different ways when it's well-fed with nutrients, and when you exercise on a daily basis, you flood your body with the natural endorphins that come from that exercise. When you surround yourself with a loving community, when you engage in things that are rewarding to you, all these things have a very positive effect on the way your mind works as well as the way your body feels. The way your body feels has a positive result on the way your mind works. To think of either one as being independent of each other, I think, is ignorant.
It's the same thing. Sure.
Yes, your body,
it's all the same.
And there's radical. Look, I'm not a depressed person, but I feel way better after I exercise.
Oh, of course.
I mean,
there's science on that says when you exercise, when you eat right, of course you're going to definitely get a boost in your mood.
But it's hard to do, and that's why people like to take a pill.
That's totally true.
And they also like to justify their actions. When people take a pill and that pill's effective, and they go, well, this is my thing. This is what did it for me. It worked for me. You're like, okay, but at what cost?
So
can you orgasm anymore? Like, there's a lot of shit that happens to people that when they take those fucking things, it really fuck them up.
Sure. So if you're making the point that they're overprescribed and people rely on them too much and it's part of the culture in a negative way, totally agree with you.
Yes.
If we look at the example of, say, paranoid schizophrenia, where it's somebody who literally sees shit that's not there and it's a genuine psychological disorder where they need a very powerful drug like Seroquel or something like that. So in the case of transgenderism, what if it's more analogous to a mental state that's as real as that? Where you know what I mean? Like,
but is the solution surgery? Sexual reassignment surgery, and how do we even know?
I don't know, but then this gets back to the point you made about the personal freedom angle of it, where they say, you know what, I'm going to do this, and this is what I want to do.
I definitely think they should have personal freedom to do it, just like they think they should have personal freedom to get their fucking nose pierced and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But should you have to pay for it?
Well, then that gets into the broader conversation about who should pay for medical coverage, period.
Right. But is this an elective thing? Like, how about girls that identify with a girl who has big tits? I identify as a girl. I have big tits, and I have little tits, and I would really
you're saying
like
the line is fucking blurry?
Well, it's certainly blurry
I agree
because
with
it's
that,
the same thing. It's the same thing in terms of you don't like your physical state, and you want someone to change it. And if you say you would be happy if you had D cups, but you have A cups, and you're convinced this is the key to your happiness, how is that any different than a person? And you could get mad at me all you want, but we're talking about the physical state.
Sure.
The physical state of someone. Like how can you say that the only way to fix this, or how could you not offer that up as a possible avenue that these people that can pursue it? If there's any surgery that can help you, and you want other people to pay for that surgery, I don't care. Just because it pertains to gender doesn't mean we have to automatically acquiesce. I don't think that's rational.
Yeah.
And when it comes to breasts or other various elective surgeries, I strongly feel that people should pay for those themselves.
Sure. Well, absolutely. When it comes to the example you give about breasts,
Right.
totally agree 100%.
Well, why is that different than sex change?
I'm not saying it is.
I'm not saying it is either.
I'm just saying if that is the case where, and by the way, I haven't read the science on this, but I'm sure there has been science on this, and they've answered the question as to whether or not doing that surgery is effective.
Well, it's not. Here's the problem. There's a massive, massive suicide rate. It's over 40%.
So
even post-operation.
I was going to say, am I wrong in my
crazy.
assumption that pre-operation, that's when more of the suicides are versus post-op?
I don't think it changes.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. See if let's be accurate about this. Suicide rates post transgender sexual reassignment operations. I am pretty sure that it's very similar. That it doesn't change. And then there's also causation versus correlation, right? Is it because they were depressed because they were in the wrong body that led them down this road, and now here they are, and they just can't get past it? Even after they have the surgery, they're still bummed out. They're not accepted by society as a woman. Even if they become a trans woman, they're still not accepted by society. And could that be changed by us being more open-minded and loving and caring?
Right? Is it
and
nature?
accepting?
Is it nurture? Is it the environment? Is it innate
I don't know.
in the person?
I don't know what it is.
I don't either.
But if it is a legitimate mental health disorder, which it used to be called gender dysphoria. And now if you use the term gender dysphoria, it's hate speech. Like in terms of us talking about this might get this podcast demonetized.
I'm sure it will be.
Probably will.
If it is gender dysphoria, then wouldn't it actually be a medical condition where the treatment should be paid for?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
And is that the correct treatment for gender dysphoria? Is that the correct treatment for someone who thinks that they should have no hand? Should you chop that hand off?
What do you think?
I don't know. Should you chop a penis off? I don't know.
Well, that's what Caitlyn Jenner did.
Yeah,
did
allegedly.
she? Wait, did she get it?
Yeah, she did eventually.
Oh, okay.
But the most hilarious statement after she did that, she said that she is no more of a woman now than she was before. Well, then, hey, definitely keep your dick.
Yeah, that's a good point.
If you were still a woman before, and pretty much everybody accepted
I'm the
you as a
same
woman.
now, which is why I did this really radical thing. It's like, no, well, you did admit that you did that for a reason that you really wanted to do it, and now it's different.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe street cred led her to have the operation to just fully get. I mean, she's fully accepted by that community and become a spokesperson by the community.
But you know what?
And
It's funny because she's super right wing on other issues. Remember when she went on
Gay marriage.
She was like, "I'm very traditional."
yeah, like
Yeah, you're traditional. I'm sure. Yeah.
very, very traditional.
So a lot of people in the trans community were like, you know what, fuck her, because she
Yeah.
was out there arguing. I forget, it was gay marriage was
Yeah, it was
one
gay
of them.
marriage.
But then there was another one where she was talking about economics, and she was, like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, you
listen,
fucking
bitch.
privileged prick. Without
Yeah.
how much money do you have for just sitting around all day and getting paid from the Kardashians?
She's a male Kardashian. She always was. That's what she always was. She's on that fucking frivolous, ridiculous show, and she became a really bizarre side note in pop culture. And that's what's going on. I mean, when you listen to her talk, she's like one of the worst spokespeople ever for the trans community.
And a lot of trans people say that.
Yes.
They're like, we don't want her as... Because they're, trans people are individuals.
Yes.
So you have to look at people like they're individuals. And when somebody's put out as this is a leader of this movement, then it's like... Well,
There's
that
way
makes
better examples. The woman who created Sirius Satellite Radio. She also created a satellite navigation system. She used to be a man. In fact, she's a very, very brilliant person. I interviewed her for Sci-Fi for that Joe Rogan Questions Everything show.
Right.
She created a model of her wife who they actually had babies together, and then she became a woman. Wow. Yeah, and they stayed together, and she created a robot of her wife, and she's like constantly programming it and changing it and adding new language and new vocabulary to it, and she thinks eventually as technology improves, she's going to be able to recreate her wife in a robot form.
By the way, another great example. Brianna Westbrook is...
What does this say? The uncomfortable truth that many surveys, including the 2011 Swedish study, indicate that suicide rates remain high after sex reassignment surgery. The Swedish study reports that people who have had sex reassignment surgery are 19 times more likely to die by suicide than is the general population.
To be fair, I see the source as LifeSite News, which is a very, very right-wing
That's
site.
true, but the National Center for Transgender Equality reported in 2014 that 40% of the people who identify as transgender have attempted suicide.
Very well may be true. I'm just saying
That's
that
the
I don't know
National
if,
Center for Transgender Equality.
They were just breaking up this article here, which is the study. I found it on
PLOS1 is legit. Okay,
Yeah.
that's true. That's legit.
So, but they're reporting facts from studies, and I mean this is pretty well established that there's a high suicide rate amongst transgender people pre and post reassignment surgery.
Okay,
but again, we go back to the same thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that they couldn't be happy if they weren't just fully accepted by society. I mean, I don't know if it's. I think Caitlyn Jenner's probably happier because she gets a shitload of attention now.
Yeah,
and she was in the shadow, but I'm over here, guys, I'm over here.
By the way,
and now she's the front and center of fucking Vogue magazine.
Yeah, a lot of attention. Speaking of people who would be a better example and a better face of the transgender movement. Brianna Westbrook is a candidate who's running for office, and there's actually a special election today, and she's running for Congress, and she's really inspirational. I know about her because I founded Justice Democrats, which was a group that was going to primary corporate Democrats and run candidates who take no corporate PAC money, and she's one of the candidates. And what you find is the people who are really respectful are the people who she happens to be transgender, but she's not putting that front and center.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like
she's a person.
She's a person, exactly.
Right.
And she's going, here are the things I believe in, and I think this will improve everybody's lives, and I'm going to run on these issues. And it's not like, hey, I'm transgender, and if you don't vote for me, then you're a bigot.
Right. That's a very good point. And I think open-mindedness is incredibly critical in our wide, diverse society. And when people push back against that, it creates all sorts of giant problems. And I just think it doesn't matter. You should be able to do whatever you want to do. And if it doesn't affect you, why do you care? I think we should be really, really, really careful about what we do to children, though. And there's
I saw your conversation on that recently, and I think you made a bunch of good points. Like, when is it okay to say, you know what, okay, if you want to do the surgery now, you can do the surgery? Well,
there's a going back to Heather Hying and Eric Weinstein. There was an article that I believe Brett Weinstein put up on his Twitter yesterday, or maybe it was Heather, but they were discussing this real problem with kids who are really young, where it becomes a trendy thing to think that they're in the wrong gender, and then they get reinforcement from their very progressive friends who also get excited about this idea, and then to intervene surgically or chemically when your body's still in development. You're 13 or whatever the fuck you are. You don't know what you are yet, and you should be able to give yourself a chance to grow and develop. But there's a lot of people that disagree, including people that are already transgender, that, in my mind, they're probably more supportive of it because they want more people to do it. Like, Steven Crowder had this weird thing where he and Jared, that guy that he does his show with, went to this meeting, and they were talking about, they just did this undercover film thing where they're talking about their 6-year-old. Like, is that too young to transition them? And they're like, no. As a matter of fact, studies show that it's a good time to do it, and that you could transition back if he changes his mind. And he was like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you can't. You're using hormone blockers on a kid. You're going to radically affect the way that kid develops as a grown adult.
Yeah, I don't know what line is the proper line.
Adulthood.
But is it 16?
No.
Or is it 18?
No.
Is it 21?
I think it's probably 25. I think
25.
It's fully developed frontal cortex.
So the only problem I have with that is, like, I hate the fact that we have all of these different lines in society. Like, okay, you have to be this age to drink. You have to be this age to get tobacco. You have to be this age for porn.
Well, I think a lot of those lines are incorrect. And I think science will show that the frontal lobe is not fully developed until you're 25 years old.
So, but should you also not be able to vote until you're 25? Really?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with that.
Why?
Because
those green-haired fuckers that were in Heather Hying's speech, they were all like 19 and goofy, and they're going to look back at that video someday and go, what the fuck was wrong with me?
Yeah, listen,
when
there's a lot of
Republican
idiots, of course.
They're growing their own vegetables, and they have to work for a living.
But that's the thing, is that those people are assholes too, and also not that smart.
Some of them.
Some of them,
yeah,
of course. But
some of them. Some of them are just young.
In my mind, I think we should just draw a clean line at 16 for everything.
Oh, God,
You can fight for your country.
No.
Why not?
What do you want to have, Kylie Jenner as a fucking president?
Because I don't.
There's a lot of them, man.
I don't want to baby kids. I want to make.
I
it
don't
so
want to
that-
baby them either, but I don't think like really radical choices should be up to them when their brain's not fully developed.
But at the
when you're
same time-
16, you're so young. You don't think
When
about
did
it
you
'cause you're
first drink?
30.
When did you first drink?
It was definitely before I was 21. At a party, I was in high school. I don't know, somewhere around then.
Somewhere in your teens?
Yeah.
So then, should you be locked up for that?
No, not locked up, but it shouldn't be legal. Shouldn't be able to go into a liquor store and
Really?
just buy a pint of Jack
But
Daniels.
in Europe, I don't think they have any age laws in Europe for alcohol and stuff, right?
Well,
am I wrong about that?
I think there is.
14
I think
or
it's I think it's
14.
fairly
So
young.
that's-
Maybe wine and things along like that. I think first of all, having things that are forbidden definitely accentuates the desire to have them. We know that.
Sure.
Right? Telling a kid that cigarettes are bad, you can't have cigarettes. They want to smoke cigarettes. They want to be rebels. They want to drink. They want to do things that the adults do.
And what age for sexual consent? I mean, we obviously can't do 25 for that.
Right.
So you have to draw a reasonable line where you say, okay, enough people have developed to the point where they're physically mature.
But there's a big difference between sex, which I don't think is a bad thing. I don't think it's a disastrous thing. I think
So you don't
is-
mind the different lines? Like
well, I think
21,
people should
16
be
or
allowed
whatever?
to have sex with each other when they like it. Like, I think kids should be able to give each other the massages. A 17-year-old boy and a 17-year-old girl
Yeah, of course that's
should
fine,
be able
yeah.
to make out, and they should be able to fuck if they
Sure,
want to. I
exactly.
think it's our job to responsibly educate them about birth control and about
Yeah.
consent and about and also, there's different styles of parenting. Some people grow up in horrible households where the dad's misogynist and there's no mom, and this kid's gonna have a fucked up idea what women are. Same could be said about women or girls who grow up with a hateful mother who hates men. I mean, you have a lot of weird shit that you have to get over as you become an adult, as you move out of the nest and you become your own person, establish your own ideas based on your life experiences and education, what you've learned from all the other people that you've interacted with. I mean, it's not a hard, fast rule, but I think there's a big difference between that and voting on what happens with our future, what happens with war, what happens with... There's so many things that a 16-year-old kid is just not ready for.
So, but like again, I think my counter argument to that is, but there are a lot of fucking 68-year-old idiots out there too.
It's true.
And we don't try to
Just test 'em.
delegitimize their vote because...
Should. I think we should.
But anytime you have a system where you say, well, you're an idiot, so you can't vote, it's always inevitably just flip back to be used against the poor in society.
Right. So
You know
how
what
do
I
you
mean?
fix that?
So, well, look, I mean, there's a great quote from Winston Churchill. I think he said, democracy is the worst form of government except for all others.
Yeah, that's a great quote.
Yeah, exactly. And that's that's kind of what we're talking about here. And in terms of drawing the line, I don't know. I just feel like there's something right about drawing one line and saying everything over this. But I do hear you. Like, it is true that sex is a very different thing from voting.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I don't think we should regulate sex except for adults having sex with minors.
I agree, 100%.
I mean, when I was 17, my girlfriend was 16, and I remember I turned 18 and she turned 17.
And there was a year
someone
you were a
told me-
criminal.
Yeah, someone told me that if we kept having sex that I would go to jail. I was like, what the fuck? Are you serious? Like, this is madness.
Yes.
I mean, we've been banging it out for 11 months now. If we stop now...
It makes no sense.
Yeah, I was really nervous. I was like, what if I go to jail? I don't think that works that way. I don't think they put you in jail for that. But
Yeah. I remember how bad I felt when I was like in high school and I was smoking weed, and I thought like, if I get fucking caught doing this shit,
I'm gonna go to jail
but then,
forever.
But then you think about it, and it's like, hold the fuck on.
Right.
Bill Clinton, I smoked, but I didn't hell, and Barack Obama was part of the fucking Choom gang or some shit where he would.
What?
He was part of this thing called the Choom gang where he would. Yeah, look it up, Jamie. He would smoke weed. There's a picture of him smoking weed on the internet. When he's
I think
young.
it's a cigarette.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, because he
Yeah.
did smoke weed a lot.
Yeah,
and
he
he
did
admits
smoke
it.
weed a
And then,
lot.
I think that there were charges of Bush used cocaine, and then Obama said he did a little
course.
bit of cocaine and shit
Yeah.
like that. So what drives me fucking crazy is that you have these guys who did all these things. They know damn well that what they did at the time was just experimentation. There was nothing morally wrong about it. And now
Yeah.
we have a system where we lock up fucking thousands of people, millions of people
Yeah.
over the same shit. Meanwhile, they became president when they did that. You're
Well,
ruining
not
lives.
only that, the 8 years that he was in the office, how many people were locked up for marijuana?
Exactly.
A
Exactly.
lot. Yeah, not just for selling, but for recreational use in certain states.
There were people who got who have life sentences as a result of nonviolent drug offenses.
Yeah.
Now, to Obama's credit, towards the end of his time in office, he started doing pardons and commutations of those sentences. But the thing that drives me crazy, again, to get back to one of my main points here, is I hate the fucking incrementalism and gradualism moving towards the thing that we all know is the right answer. We all know the right answer is to legalize it and fucking let every single nonviolent drug offender out of prison and fucking apologize to him.
Not only that, the hypocritical nature of having all this coincide with the pharmaceutical industry selling opioids that are killing people at a radical rate.
While they take contributions from them.
It's fucking crazy. I mean, they're literally a part of a drug dealing enterprise.
I remember my grandma on my dad's side. I remember, she passed away a while ago, but I would go to her place and look at her fucking medicine thing. There were 70 different kinds of pills. I was like, holy fuck, she's getting zonked out of her mind on a regular basis. Like, that's the whole point of it. And I'm not even begrudging an older person who's like, fuck it, I'm checking out. Let's just give me all the pills you want.
Right.
But my point is, if that's going to be the mentality for them, why the fuck would you lock up poor people for smoking weed or doing cocaine or whatever the case is?
Yeah, I don't think anybody could rationally argue that. I mean, it just seems... at this stage of the game, especially when it comes to things that are non-toxic or non-fatal, things like marijuana or kratom, there's no argument against it. It doesn't make any sense. Especially when you could go right down the street, you could go to the CVS and buy enough liquor to kill yourself instantly.
Exactly.
I mean, easily. Right here. That table right over there will kill you.
Yeah, if you drink all that, for sure.
Yeah, there's a table over there with a big bottle of Gentleman's Jack. There's a couple of bottles of whiskey. There's some whiskey from some place in Bakersfield and a big jug of wine. Dead. Drink all that
100%.
shit. Dead. 100%.
So, sorry to change topics so abruptly, but I'm from New York. The bagels here are fucking terrible.
Yeah. Is that the water?
I don't know. But
Must be.
I was like, this isn't a bagel. This is like a fucking piece of stale bread.
Yeah. I think it's the water. I think it's the moisture in the air, too. I wonder if the bagels are better in Seattle. Is it moisture up there, right? It's wet.
And then I'm
Wonder
going
if
to try
they're
the
better.
pizza. I'm going to try the pizza, I think, today here.
Don't do it.
I'm going to do it just because I got to compare, man. I got to compare. But for my whole life, I heard like, New York pizza is the best.
Where do you live now? You live in the city?
No, I live just outside of the city. I live in Westchester County still, but not in New Rochelle anymore.
Yeah, it's better pizza for sure. Do you used to go to Nikki's Pizza right down the street from
I
White
think I've
Plains
only been
Billiards?
there once, but there's one next to that called Mario's. Have you ever been there?
I don't think so. No. Executive Billiards. If you walked out of Executive and take a right in White Plains, Nikki's was on the right-hand side, but I heard Nikki's burnt down.
Okay.
Nikki's I never had white pizza before until I went to Nikki's and I had white pizza. I'm like, holy shit, this is one of the greatest things humans have ever created.
When you were there, was there the strip of bars developed yet on White Plains in White Plains or no?
It's hard to remember. There was some bars there for sure, but
There were old dive bars and shit.
all we would do is go play pool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
there it is. Nikki's. Is it still there?
It's still there. I think it's
What's
still there.
those signs? What's that stickers on the door? Why is that shit on the door? To the right of that. Looks like there's like closed down. Yeah, look. It's got
I mean, I
yellow
think I
tape.
was there like 2 years ago, so
I
mean,
heard-
it could have closed since then.
I
But
think that's
Mario's
but that's-
Pizza in White Plains is you have to try.
Oh, it is open. So it is open now.
Yeah,
So they must have. Did it burn down and then they rebuilt it? Because that was yellow tape over the door, like police tape.
It looks different now.
Oh yeah, they cleaned it up. Fucking
So-
goddamn! If they have the same recipe, run, do not walk. Run to Nikki's and get some of that white pizza or any of their pizza.
So, speaking of your crazy stories about at Executive Billiards and all the crazy characters you met there, my friend Corin and I, when we were in high school, we would go play poker at these basically underground spots in New Rochelle. And they were either
Like Rounders, like the movie with Matt Damon.
kind of, but they weren't Russian. They were either like weird fake mafioso dudes or real mafioso dudes. We couldn't tell the difference. We didn't know because they all talk like this and they're like,
Right.
"Hey Jimmy, get me a fucking Diet Coke." And
Right.
all they would do is sit there and smoke cigarettes the whole time. And so we played cards there, and we had some friends who did well, and me and my friend probably lost money overall. But there was years later, I was watching. I turned on the TV. It just happened to be the local news report. Learned that one of the guys who was there got his fucking hand chopped off right in front of the place. And I was like, well, we were in over our fucking heads now, weren't we? We were in high school. I know.
Oh, why'd they chop his hand off? For stealing?
I'm sure they were real mafia guys, and there
Holy
was some sort
shit.
of,
That's dark. Chopping a person's hand off is fucking
Yeah.
rough. What if they gave it to him? Here, go get the soda back on, bitch.
But what's funny is they were fucking, even though they're mafia guys, they were fucking, like, they were really nice to us. We're little high school kids. And
a lot of mafia people who were gentlemen. The thing is, like, you can't be in the wrong situation. You can't owe them money. You can't be in a situation where they can get money out of you, where they can extort money from you, you know?
Yeah.
And if you were running a business or anything where they offered you protection or any of that kind of shit, like, you're fucked, man.
And that's why gambling should be fucking legal. Because it's illegal,
Right.
push it underground, now those guys run it, and then people
Sure.
get their fucking hands chopped off.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, in Vegas, they just, what do? They kick your ass, put you in jail? Then the Vegas used to run the mob, or the mob rather used to run Vegas.
They used to run fucking everything.
Yeah.
Even half of fucking Hollywood, I'm sure, was financed with mobster money.
Well, you know, we've talked about that many times, that Ciro's nightclub was owned by Bugsy Siegel. That's the Comedy Store.
There you go. Yeah.
That used to be a total mob-run joint, and to this day, I don't believe in ghosts, but I go to the belly room. I've gone to the belly room several times with my friends. Like, over the 20 years that I've been there, we go by
Creepy
ourselves.
vibe.
When it's dark, just stand there. What do you think? You feel anything? I'm fucking scared. Hug me. Hug me.
Listen,
I'm gonna run.
I don't believe in ghosts at all, but I think energy is real. And I don't know whether we create it in our own minds where we look at something and we're like, I feel weird looking at... Because rooms
Yeah.
give you a feel. You walk into a room, you get a feel off the room.
Well, people have been murdered there for sure, and that's the thought process about that place, is that there's probably some leftover weird vibes. And I know a lot of people that have seen weird shit there, but I don't know if I believe them. They say they've seen weird shit
I
there.
know Tony Hinchcliffe. I saw the podcast where he was like, I saw a ghost.
Maybe.
Just so you know, Tony, I love you, but I was at home going, fuck off.
Fuck off, Tony. I've never seen a ghost there, but I've felt weird. Like I said, I've gone into the main room when it's dark at night, and I've gone by myself and I shit my pants. I gotta get out of here. But I definitely believe people were murdered there. There used to be a tunnel that would go from the back of the Comedy Store all the way up to Crest Hill, which is a street above the Comedy Store that the Comedy Store used to own. I think they bought the two of them together. And there was like a tunnel where they'd take booze and dead people and shit and fucking scoot them up there and throw them in the back of a trunk. I don't know. It's a fun thing to talk about. When you look at like all those TV shows that like Haunted Hollywood, the Comedy Store is very high on the list.
Have you ever seen the paranormal fucking ghost hunters?
Oh, they're so stupid.
The goofiest shows ever. It's like dark in a hallway and
They
they're
never
running
find
like
shit.
I think I saw something over here.
That is like the biggest like cock tease of a show.
I know. Oh, remember John Edward, the guy who did
Yes,
the
the
crossing?
psychic guy,
Yeah, and then he
yeah.
tried to do it with 9/11 victims. They were like, "Fuck you! Now you're canceled."
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
He used to do it up until that time.
But I don't like, how the fuck do network executives approve shows where it's like the fucking Long Island Medium or some shit, and it's like they
Dude.
pretend to talk to the dead? How the fuck you gonna put that on daytime TV like it's not complete and utter horse shit?
Well, that was one of the problems that happened when I was doing that sci-fi show, the Joe Rogan Questions Everything show. They wanted to make sure that I wasn't out to debunk a lot of the shows that they would have on their network. And I go, look, I just want to find out what's going on. I go, some of it's probably real. I want it to be real.
Yeah.
That was an eye-opening experience. Doing that show was very eye-opening because I realized what kind of people are really into these things. They're just whimsical, hopeful people that don't have much going on. They want it to be real, that there's a 10-foot-tall furry man living in the forest, or that aliens come down and suck people out of their beds and bring them through walls in the middle of the night and all that shit.
Well, you really took it to the chemtrail people.
Yeah, those poor fucks. Well, they
I
didn't
mean, do
understand.
they despise you now?
Oh, they get mad. You're fucking chill. Geoengineering is real, bro.
What does Alex Jones say to you? Because I know you're friends with him. What does he say to you about chemtrails? Does he try to convince you?
No, he thinks that most of what you see, according to him, but see, Alex, he goes with the weather a little bit too. He thinks most of what you see is just condensation trails that happen when you have a jet engine and you have the cold air and condensation in the atmosphere, and that's what they are. I mean, they're artificial clouds that are created by a jet engine passing through the air. That's what they are. You can do it over and over again. You can do it right now. The idea that they're spraying something, and that something happens to have aluminum and barium in it, but it also looks exactly like a cloud. No, that's moisture. The
Right,
reason why
yeah.
it looks like a cloud is because it's a fucking cloud. And one of the things that I said in the chemtrail thing, I go, you want to talk about real chemtrails? Here's the real chemtrail. They're burning gasoline in the
Yeah.
sky above your head every day to the tune of thousands of flights. You're not concentrating on that. Instead, you're concentrating on the natural reaction of jet engines and moisture in the air. It's so stupid.
I don't get, because there's a thing that people do where it's almost like they're trying to find the worst possible fucking argument, and then that's the part of it that they get obsessed with. And this goes back to the thing about Trump, where I told you on CNN, all they did for an hour and a fucking half was talk about Russia. And it's like, I'm sitting there going, I just covered a story on my show last week about how the head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau is a guy named Mick Mulvaney. He took over $50,000 from the predatory payday loan industry. Donald Trump at his inauguration took over $1 million from the predatory payday loan industry. They just scrapped the rules that were supposed to clean up that industry, and now they're letting them charge 950% interest. You want the fucking conspiracy? There it is right there. And you're not talking about it.
No. Putin.
It's Russia. He's a fucking Manchurian candidate and loud noises and he curses a lot and fucking Stormy Daniels. I don't give a fuck about any of that. Talk about the shit that matters.
I care about Stormy. No. I do wonder what's going to happen with the indictments. I do wonder. Because people are pleading guilty now, and you know the concern is that it's going to trickle.
So here's the thing. Is Donald Trump a corrupt businessman? Fuck yes. Anybody who says he's not has no fucking idea what this guy's been into. There's evidence he did deals with the mafia. He has a hotel in Panama, which was laundering drug money. So do I think he's a criminal? Yes. Do I think he did money laundering? Yes. Would it be good if Mueller somehow got him on these things? Of course it would be. But the idea that he's a Manchurian candidate or he did treason is so ridiculous that it makes me, a guy who's massively anti-Trump, scoff and get really angry when people try to push that narrative. And here's the thing. It's an open legal question as to whether or not you can indict a sitting president. Usually what has to happen is you have to impeach a sitting president. Well, right now, Congress is overwhelmingly Republican. You know who's not going to fucking impeach Donald Trump, even if they prove the worst case scenario that he's some sort of Manchurian candidate? The Republicans are not going to fucking impeach him. So at the end of the day, when the Democrats focus on this ad nauseum, the reason they're doing that is because it's something that they feel comfortable and safe talking about because they don't have to talk about Medicare for all or free college or a living wage or getting the corporate money out of politics or ending the fucking wars, which they also support. So they're not talking about real issues, and they're focusing on the fake scandal and sensationalism because they think it'll score them cheap points with the electorate, and it won't. And they think there's an end game here, and there's not.
But there is something there, right? I mean, if
he laundered money.
But if people are getting indicted,
sure,
with this Russia thing.
So I'll break that down. Paul Manafort is one of the people who got indicted.
Right.
Super duper corrupt, laundering money. Michael Flynn, same thing.
Laundering money, how so?
So in the case, I know more of the details about Flynn. So Flynn is a guy, he got, what's his face? Mueller went after Flynn, and it was proven that Flynn took $500,000 from the Turkish government, and in return for that, he pushed the Trump administration to not arm the Kurds who are fighting ISIS. And the reason why is because Turkey hates the Kurds, and they don't want us to arm the Kurds. So in other words, Michael Flynn was doing the bidding of the Turkish government and pushing their influence in our government, and he didn't register as a foreign agent in the process. So, exactly. So he's doing the bidding of the Turkish government and not disclosing that, and you have to register as a foreign agent if you're going to take that money, and you're going to do that.
And this doesn't run down to Trump.
Well, that's the open question as to whether or not at some point along the way, whether it's with Russia or with other countries, by the way, nobody talks about the fact that Trump registered 8 new businesses in Saudi Arabia when he was on the campaign trail, and then he just gave them over $100 billion weapons deal. He also took $270,000 from top Saudi officials at his hotel when he was president-elect. And then again, he gave him over $100 billion weapons deal. The case of Israel, Jared Kushner has millions of dollars from Israeli banks. And then lo and behold, when Donald Trump was president-elect, they tried to push the UN to not condemn Israel over their illegal settlements. So you have his entire administration is just a grab bag of corruption and foreign influence. But it's foreign influence across the board, and it's influence also from corporations. But again, people are not focusing on the corporations, and they're not focusing on the other countries that they're corrupt with because they're hyper-focusing on the Russia thing. And at the end of the day, they want to impeach Trump over Russia. But like I said, it's going to be hard to prove, and then it's an open question if you can indict. I don't think you can indict a sitting president. You have to impeach. They're not going to fucking impeach. So really, this is Democrats sniffing their own farts and acting like they're doing something important when they're really not. And the only there, in my opinion, is money laundering. He's a corrupt businessman, but he's not some sort of Putin puppet because he's actually done many policies that are against Putin. So, for example, he armed Ukrainian rebels who are fighting Russia right now. You don't arm people who are fighting Russia if you're their fucking puppet. You know, he also is bombing Syria, and we're staying indefinitely in Syria. They just announced that recently. You don't, the Syrian government, that's one of Putin's top allies. You're not going to permanently occupy their country and try to fight that government if you're in bed. They're doing a NATO buildup on Russia's border right now. So if you're Putin's puppet, you don't have a military buildup on his border. There was just a story the other day about how now the U.S., our military, is sending our ships to the Black Sea, right on Russia's fucking border. So it's military escalation. And that's another part of this that pisses me off, is that if the Democrats really wanted to resist Trump, resist that. Say, I don't want to send our fucking military to get into a standoff with Russia. I don't want to bomb fucking Syria and permanently occupy it. This is how the Democrats should be resisting. They should be resisting Trump from a left-wing position and from an anti-interventionist position. But instead, everything you hear from the Democrats is, he's under Putin's thumb and he needs to make sure that he's even harder on Putin and he does more sanctions against Putin and he escalates further with Russia. Listen, man, they're a nuclear-armed power. Do you want to fucking get into a confrontation with a nuclear-armed power? We're sitting here living our lives just going about our business. And this is crazy. We're rolling the dice and we're playing a game of chicken with Vladimir Putin.
Do you think that they're just caught up in this sexy thing?
Yes, a lot of it is sensationalism bias. Yes.
It's also what the public is really focused on right now, so it's something that gathers ratings?
I think they're driving it. I think it's driven from the top down, from the establishment media down, from the Democrats down. Because again, if you talk to regular people, they're fucking hurting.
Right.
Wages have been stagnant since 1980. There's 30 million people that don't have health care. In Trump's first year in office, 3 million more people lost health care because he did all these executive orders that basically took a hatchet to Obamacare. So you have all these people who are really hurting. They care about their wages. They care about, not being saddled with over $1 trillion in student loan debt. This is the shit regular people care about. So when they turn on CNN and they see Russia, 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 even if you don't like Trump, I despise Trump with every fiber of my fucking being, but when I see this, I roll my fucking eyes. And then they have the nerve to say, oh, Trump won't shut up about Russia. You were talking about it all day, and he responded to it, and because he responds to it, you're like, oh, there he goes again with Russia.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I'm really fascinated. And I'm fascinated to see if he can make it out of 4 years.
Well, I think he's going to...
Do you think he's going to run again?
I think he's going to run again, and...
Think he's going to win again?
He has a chance.
He does.
He has a fucking chance, because if the Democrats run Kamala Harris, if they run Cory Booker or any of the other corporatists, he can win, because he's going to go right back into his tap dance about being a populist and helping people. And guess what? In the first few years of his tax bill, regular people did get a tax cut. So he's going to say, look at your tax bill. I just gave you, extra $1,000 this year. Who you want to vote for? And so there is an argument that he's going to make to the people. And if you don't have somebody like Bernie Sanders or Bernie Sanders talking about the issues that matter to people, well, then of course he can fucking win again. Listen, I was laughed at when I said, if it's Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, he can win. People laughed at me.
Because they didn't want it. They didn't want it to be true.
Because it's
and the narrative,
the story.
All you saw was that there was like a 75% chance that Hillary was going to win.
Oh, the fucking Huffington Post one was over 99%.
No,
swear to God,
really?
Before the election, a week leading up to the election.
Is so silly.
I know, and the way they calculated.
And they
it
have
was
such
so
good
stupid.
articles too. They sprinkle in great articles with silly horseshit.
The trick is avoid the opinion section,
Yeah.
but if you stick to the actual journalists, then they do a good job.
But it's got to be embarrassing for them.
Oh, for the journalists? Yeah. They're like, you guys are fucking shitting all over the hard work that I do.
Yeah. Kyle, it's been a lot of fun, man.
This has been a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
Oh, anytime.
Thanks, brother.
Anytime.
Really
Thank
appreciate
you, man.
it. It was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed this. Thanks.
Tell everybody where they can find your show.
Oh, youtube.com/secular talk. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's @Kyle Kulinski.
Boom. That was great.